Because you have to be careful. We all know that Dr. Christopher was in jail many times. The medical profession wants to chew us up. Who knows about or has heard of Jimmy Keller? St. Jude Hospital in St. Jude International in Tijuana, Mexico. Okay, he was a man, he lived in Texas, he developed cancer, facial cancer. They did some surgery, took some drugs, cancer went away. Came back into his ear, they carved the whole side of his face out. Removed it right to the skull, no ear, a hole in his head here, part of his jaw's gone, looks like a monster. Cancer was gone, came back, they checked him again, they said, you're dead, just go home. There's no chance for you. Just a regular guy. He decided to investigate alternative therapy, healed himself using herbs, foods, and all types of alternative therapy. Started helping other people. Because he said, well, wait a minute, if you're not having success with medicine, here's what I did. I mixed this and I mixed this. Just a lay person. Authorities came after him and said, you cannot do this. And he said, why? You know, I went to medicine, I did everything they said. Look at my head. I have no side of my face. I took all the drugs, it didn't work. What's wrong with some foods and herbs? They said, you'll go to jail. He went to Tijuana, Mexico and opened his clinic. I know hundreds of people that went to him that healed themselves of cancer. A really nice man that just wanted to help people. The FBI went into Mexico, drug him out of his clinic, put him in the trunk of a car, and drove him back across the border into the United States. Arrested him, took him to Brownsville, Texas, and put him in jail, awaiting trial. In Malibu, the councilwoman's son was murdered. They caught the murderer, and he's in jail on a $500,000 bail. Jimmy Keller was on a $5 million cash bail. Think about this. The government does not like people that deal with cancer. They tried him and gave him 30 years, and he's still in jail right now. Now, they're appealing it, and I do believe he will get out sooner than his 30 years, as soon as this calms down a little bit. And he was practicing in Mexico. So just to give you an idea of a few things that are going on, many people have been in jail.
Every cancer patient represents about $250,000.
Yeah, think about that. So you might as well be going into banks and saying, give me $250,000, give me $250,000 every time you deal with one person with cancer. Thank you. So I do work with people, but you just need to be real careful. And as you'll see, I follow a lot of guidelines set up by standard medical practice and also cancer institutions and agencies. So what did I do for this woman? Well, in one simple answer, everything. When people come to me with cancer and or AIDS and or heart disease, and I feel that their life is threatened, unless they will do 110%, I won't work with them. Okay? So I want them to do everything. And most of the time they will, because they are incredibly frightened. Okay? And they're usually even more frightened than the disease of the medical practice because they're seeing a friend or a relative be tortured, burnt, mutilated, poisoned. So the first thing I did with her was I said, well, remember I have 3 food programs? Which one do you think we started on? What? Juice. Yes, fasting. Now she was 23, strong, fairly healthy, a California vegetarian, which can mean anything, right? And so I put her on fasting, raw foods. I put her on cancer formula, Herbal, similar to the red clover combination. I used extra herbs in there. What herbs might I have used in addition to like the red clover combination to boost this? Poke. Yeah, echinacea. Garlic, thank you. I even add a few more herbs nowadays. I've been working a little bit, I like mistletoe, which European mistletoe, Viscum album, right? Okay, a specific. Red clover, we know is a specific, garlic is specific, poke is specific, chaparral, that illegal thing. I always put lobelia in. What's that? Yeah, why not? Wheatgrass. We talked about all the people lined up outside the door of the wheatgrass manufacturer, wheatgrass.
You put her on all these.
Yes.
Christopher Hobbs mentioned the estrogenic properties in red clover,
Mm-hmm.
and that taken on a regular basis with breast cancer, it would accentuate it or
Yeah.
cause it to become. Are those such minute amounts in that formula that would not affect it that way?
Yeah, and I've never seen that. All I can tell you is what I've seen in my clinic, and I've never seen that. So, David?
I was a little concerned with what Christopher said, and so on our trip to the airport, we talked quite a bit about it. And I guess he came across different than what he thought. He says, no, that's not the case at all. Basically, what the red clover will do, as we talked about in my lecture, and Christopher confirmed this to me on the airport, was that the phytosteroids will actually block the binding sites and keep the estrogen from getting in. And even though it might have somewhat of a stimulating effect on those binding sites, which might be better than having the estrogen just hook up those binding sites. So Christopher totally agreed that something like red clover is probably the best thing to do to keep estrogen from binding up.
Why did he say limited to a cup every couple of days?
Yeah, he said it was contraindicated.
I'm not certain, but he said he didn't want to come across that way. So, but at any rate, we've never had a problem with red clover.
No.
Yeah, and also, historically looking at it, red clover is the common denominational herb in every cancer formula I've ever seen. From being 50% of Jason Winter's to Dr. Christopher's to every one. So, again, sometimes, you know, we have to look at histories, too, and see what happens. Dr. Christopher's book under red clover, it's all cancer remedies. Remember when I asked Dr. Christopher about all the herbs, and I said red clover, and he said anti-cancer, and it was the only one he said that for. So sometimes what a scientific report might show is in something, and the deduction that you make from that doesn't equal what's happening in the real world. And that's been my experience. Especially red clover externally is incredible on skin cancers, breast cancers, making a poultice out of it, and we're going to get into poultice in a second. I have a formula in my price list at the very back in green on my herbal catalog at the bottom of the first page called Regeneration Tonic, and those are some of the herbs that I use. They're mainly immune stimulants and detoxifiers. I've been using periwinkle a bit. In fact, I also like to use as an immune stimulant Pau d'Arco. Interestingly enough, there's a chemotherapy drug called Lapicol that's made from Pau d'Arco, which is also called Lapacho. And periwinkle, which is Viscum album, is what two of the top chemotherapy drugs are made from, vinblastine and vincristine. Pardon me? What did I say? Oh, sorry. Yes, Vinca major and Vinca rosea is the specific one that they're using for vinblastine and vincristine, some type of chemotherapy drug. And put together a whole herbal formula, red clover combination, plus you can add to the red clover combination, which is a general for cleansing, we have to say. Add to that red clover combination any specifics you want. I also had her drinking, you know, good quantities of wheatgrass juice. As far as externally, on the breast, we used my favorite poultice, which is poke and mullein and lobelia, one of Dr. Christopher's formulas. And usually I use about 3 parts poke and maybe 1 part mullein and 1 part lobelia. You can also drink and take this internally. Sometimes externally I make poke poultices. I just made one before we left, poke garlic, fresh, and vinegar in the blender. Garlic to burn, because I'll tell you about this particular tumor in a minute. It was gigantic, and we need to do a little natural surgery. But poke is always in there. Poke, 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 poke. When you think of anything from mastitis, painful breasts, swelling in the breasts, all the way to breast cancer, poke is a specific for the lymphatics. What else? Hot and cold showers on the breast, and including the whole body, 7 reps, AM and PM. And what does this mean? Specifically for breast cancer, I like after you take your morning shower, usually you're mixing hot and cold water, right? You only play with the hot. Remember that in this routine. Turn the hot all the way off until it's full cold on the breast. Let it be on the breast for a minute, rub it, touch it, squeeze it, bring the hot back up to as hot as you can stand it for a minute. Massage it, hot all the way off to go full cold for a minute. And you do hot and cold 7 times, so that's 14 repetitions back and forth. That's going to stimulate the blood flow into that breast more than anything else. And with all the herbs and juices and things I'm putting in the body, they won't do any good at all unless I can get blood flow to the cancer, right? So I have to get the blood flow there. The best way I know to move the blood outside of cayenne pepper is hot and cold hydrotherapy. Absolutely. Yeah, and the lymphatic fluid too. Incredible, hot and cold. Now sure, when you turn that hot all the way off, you'll go, ah, 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 especially up here. I've done that a few mornings, tried to keep it quiet. It's cold water. And it's good if you do this over your whole body. This is just a great thing to do. Now this goes from everything from sore muscles to broken bones to sprains to any type of injury. Get blood to the area. It's a basic of healing. No blood, no healing, period. So especially with cancer, I want to increase the circulation. So hot and cold showers. Lots of massage on that area. What happens when we have a disease or we hurt ourselves usually? We look at that area and go, yeah, we don't want to touch it. We hate it. We close it off from the rest of our body. Is that going to promote it to get well? I mean, when I burnt my hand and it curled up in a ball and all the skin came off, I was like, whoa. And then I thought, wait a minute. If I want this to get well, I have to love it, okay? No matter what it looks like, it's me. We tend to isolate instead of bringing it in. So lots of massage and loving and kissing and affirmations. I love you, my breasts. I have great breasts, I love my breasts. The cancer cells are exploding, my T cells are doubling, all that stuff. Affirmations. I have one immune tonic that I make that used to say on the label, take 3 dropperfuls and look in the mirror and say, I love you 50 times. I mean, add a little bit of this mind into this program too. Exercise. I wanted her to swim. I think I put her on 30 laps 3 times a day. Why swimming? Yeah, perfect. Look at what the arms are doing. I mean, so much, you know, all the lymphatic ducts are right here. I mean, we need to stimulate this area. So I want this person to be doing this a lot. You know, moving these arms, back strokes, breast strokes, front strokes, all the strokes. So I like swimming. If swimming is absolutely impossible, then just do that type of movement. But I like swimming because the body is almost weightless. All the muscle tightness is gone, and that lymphatic fluid is almost just suspended. And you start pumping it, and it can pump through the whole body. When you're doing aerobics, you're still, all the quadriceps, hamstrings, calves are tight, groin muscles, lymphatic ducts are still a bit tight, but this weightless swimming is just wonderful. Now, sure, are we going to have to deal with chlorinated water? You know, because chlorine is not good. Well, try to find a place where there's not chlorinated water. Go to the ocean. Jump in the ocean. But exercise is important, but I specifically like swimming. You can base your exercise on the particular problem that's going on. And a lot of other things, okay? But I just want to make sure they're going internally, externally, poultices, exercise, emotional work. Of course, she got intestinal formulas and colonics or high herbal enemas. And it went on and on and on. Yes?
Pardon my ignorance here, but can you go over enema versus high enema versus colonics?
Sure. A standard enema, or like a hospital enema, fleet enema, is about 8 ounces. It's squirted into the rectum and just empties the rectum, basically so you don't poop during surgery. I mean, that's really, or to unconstipate you a little bit. That just clears out the rectum, or as you can see on our chart, just this bottom portion right here, just the rectum. That's sometimes called an enema, rectal injection. A high enema would be introducing water further all the way to the ileocecal valve or the appendix if possible. And you have to do that through repeated enemas. Usually you give a person 8 or 10 ounces, they go, wow, I have to go to the bathroom, get up and go to the bathroom quickly. But then once these sphincters relax, you can start introducing more water, a liter or more, and the person will begin to get it through the whole colon. It takes a series of steps. Would anybody like to see that done? Don't all raise your hand at once. Because if, you know, if everybody does, we can do one on a volunteer after dinner or something, and we can all see what a high enema is. But it doesn't look like I'm getting too much response here, so maybe we'll forget that. I know you do, but we'll forget that then.
I'm good at I'll go Read like 5 pound enemas off of the World Trade Center.
A lot of pressure.
That's my threat at work.
Yeah.
Somebody's bugging me. They get a 10-gallon high-end enema from the doctor.
A lot of pressure behind that. And then you just fill up the whole bowel and then get on the toilet and let all that water out. And it's a high enema. And you can do that with an herbal tea. It's real easy. You're not putting a tube up into the bowel or anything. You're just using an enema kit and putting in water. You can do it to yourself at home in 15 minutes. And it's a good way to just clean your bowel out. Because how long do anthraquinones take, Amodin? 8, 10, 12 hours. Sometimes you don't have 8, 10, 12 hours. Appendicitis, you have 1 minute. Okay, so you have to do a high enema. It's a good thing to know. Practice, play on yourself. Colonics are just a little tube in your rectum, but the water can go in and then out the same tube. So it's a washing effect. So in the process of an hour colonic, you get about 50 high enemas. Okay? So it's just a more thorough automatic washing. Are there dangers involved? You know, I don't suggest people get colonics until after they spend a month or two on intestinal corrective formulas if they want to get a colonic. I don't think a person should get one right off. Some of the machines are pressurized. You could actually blow yourself up. More nowadays, they're gravity and disposable equipment. The good colonic institutes are going gravity and disposable equipment. Yes?
This is getting a little more into rough talk, but in Dr. Christopher's 3-day cleanse book where he talks about the encasing,
Yeah.
the black encasing
Sure.
along the bowel,
Sure.
would an enema help in getting that to come out?
With all my patients, I put them through a routine of intestinal corrective formula number 1 or Dr. Christopher's formula and intestinal number 3 or my herbal home colonic powder. And I put them on that for 1 or 2 months, and then I send them to the best colonic therapists in town who call me up and say nothing came out of them. Okay? So to answer the question, would herbs do the job? Yes, absolutely. Okay? But when I'm dealing with someone with cancer or heart disease, I don't have a lot of time. Okay? And herbs do the job, but on top of those herbs, I suggest high enemas, and if they're really sick and they're a once every month or twice a month bowel person or bowel movement person, then I'll suggest colonics. Now, are colonics natural? Absolutely not. But neither is Jack in the Box. Okay? And when the pendulum swings so far out of whack this way, sometimes I have to go a long ways this way to colonics herbal tinctures, do you see what I mean, to our extent of natural healing before we can come to that place of balance where you just eat a good veg and food program 48 weeks a year and do 4 cleanses once a season. See what I mean? So I'm not promoting colonics, but in extreme situations, yeah. I usually, if my clients say I'd like to try it, hey, go try it. You know, see what you like, see what you think. I'm a big fan of experimentation. So this is quite a routine. What about work? No work. Okay, when someone comes to me with malignant cancer and their life is threatened, they have to quit their job. Okay, at least take a leave of absence. And some jobs quit. I had a man with leukemia who worked in a paint factory. Sorry, can't do that anymore, right? Breathe all those fumes and have blood cancer. Do you hear what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. But at least a leave of absence, 2-3 weeks off work. Because how could you possibly do this and run your juicer and making a gallon of juices a day, doing your hot and cold 15-minute each showers minimum twice a day, swimming 3 times a day, poultices on and off 4 or 5 times a day, and taking all these herbs and maybe a vomit once in a while and a great bowel movement and possibly work? You did. Yeah. So I find that what I help do, and a lot of people say, well, I have to work, and what I help them do is get money sometimes, sell their car, get rid of things you don't need, sell all your clothes, whatever it takes. You know, this has to be a priority. I find that unless people put their cancer healing as the priority in their life, not their husband, not their children, not their job, okay, not their hobby, not anything else, they can get well. But it has to be number 1, at least for a month. Okay? Yes?
It seems like society, as we know it, tends to put down those types of priorities.
Absolutely.
Priority of this have to work. I
Yeah.
can't get up work. I can't
Yeah.
do this. This is more important.
Absolutely. Why do you think we created, and I'll say we created medicine? For that reason. Doc, I got a headache. Well, we can run some, hey, give me some dope. I got a headache. I got to get back to work. They don't want to hear anything about vertebrae and muscles. So we have created this medical system that exists now to take care of us in a way we ask. We don't have time to get well. Just get us through today. Do you know what I'm saying? So, you know, if it sounds like I'm always blaming medical doctors, if we didn't go to them, their business would not exist. Okay? This is a financial system that's based on supply and demand. This is not communist Russia where the government decides what we eat, which happens in Russia. The government decides what foods are grown, what used to happen there, and if they decided salmon was the industry, everybody ate salmon. Okay? But our society is supply and demand. So if we stopped supplying the medical profession with bodies, the demand would go away and they'd go out of business. So that's a good point, you know, and that, so we got to get out of that idea of quick fixing or just give me something to get me through the day, learning how to take some time off and relax. I also have patients that have money, and sometimes I even ask them if they would be willing to supply my patients with herbal products and health foods that don't have the money, and most of them say yes. And I right now have 2 patients that have told me, if you get anybody with cancer that can't afford the program, I'll take care of the bill. Okay? I also take all the products of my patients that die, okay, and I make sure that they're not like energetically or even physically contaminated. And I take those back to my clinic. I never sell them, but I give them for free to people who cannot afford the cure. Whew, I said that on video. So they can follow the program. Okay, do you know what I'm saying? And the people that have cancer that aren't doing too well and may die, are fine with that. They want people to be helped. Does that make sense? So there's all sorts of ways you can work your clinic. And a lady recently with breast cancer came in, and she got $250 worth of herbal products and these things that I use for nothing. And she also received numerous things, and so all she ended up paying me for is my first consultation and a poultice, one poultice. So you can work this all sorts of ways. I have bags of things from that I just collect and keep together in my practice that I use for people that don't have the money. So anyway, just thought I'd share that with you as one of the ways I operate. So you can see that this is 100%. This particular program, it's 100%. A person needs to really move into this program. The food program. Let's take a look at this brochure. It's called Taking Control, 10 Steps to a Healthy Life and Reduced Cancer Risk, presented to us by the American Cancer Society. Taking control of your lifestyle is key to helping you feel better and reducing your cancer risk. Well, that's just what I said on my first handout, right? Okay, this is a natural healing brochure. I go to the American Cancer Society and pick up all their stuff. I have two wonderful posters in my office. One of them shows 50 types of fruits and vegetables, and it says, reduce your cancer risk. And then it points out the cruciferous vegetables of broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and cauliflower. And if you eat these, it'll reduce your cancer risk. It shows the carrots in the foods high in beta-carotene. Okay? Beautiful. And then I have another one that just has a whole bowl of fruit and vegetables, and it says, reduce your cancer risk, American Cancer Society. We go in there and pick up all this free.
We're starting to have vegetarian stuff in hospitals now, too, and everything.
Yeah. So what does it say? It tells us 5 things that we can do to protect us, to add to our life, and 5 factors to take away to protect us from cancer. Let's look at the 5 ads. Eat more cabbage family vegetables. Important studies show these vegetables, also known as cruciferous, appear to protect you against colorectal, stomach, respiratory cancers. This is broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and kale. Telling us to eat more vegetables. Number 2, eat more high-fiber foods. High-fiber diet protects you against colon cancer. Fiber occurs in whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, including peaches, strawberries, potatoes, spinach, tomatoes, wheat, bran, rice, and whole grain bread. Sounds like my program. Choose foods high in vitamin A. It may protect you against cancers of the esophagus, larynx, and lung. Fresh foods with beta-carotene like carrots, peaches, apricots, squash, and broccoli are your best source, not vitamin pills. Sounds like Dr. Christopher. Do the same with vitamin C. Number 4, this vitamin will help protect you against cancers of the esophagus and stomach. You'll find it naturally in lots of fresh fruits and vegetables like grapefruit, cantaloupe, oranges, strawberries, red and green peppers, broccoli, and tomatoes. And last but not least, number 5, add weight control. Obesity is linked to cancers of the uterus, gallbladder, breast, and colon. Exercise and lower your fat intake and avoid gaining lots of weight. Walking is a great exercise. Make sure you exercise. All it said is to be a vegetarian. Nowhere in here did I see eat low-fat meats. All I saw were fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and exercise as their 5 protective factors to protect you from cancer. So really, what am I following in my clinic? The program set out by the American Cancer Society. And I give every one of my patients with cancer this brochure. Now, they also list 5 things we can do to reduce our risk of cancer. Trim fat from our diet. Fat-loaded calories contribute to the risk of breast, colon, and prostate cancer. Subtract salt-cured and smoked and nitrate-cured foods from your diet. All those are meat. Stop smoking, which causes lung cancer and all other forms of cancer. Stop drinking or go easy on alcohol. They've been blasted a lot by the liquor industry. Drinking increases your risk of liver cancer. Smoking and drinking alcohol greatly increases your risk of cancer. And the final one is don't fry yourself to turn your skin a different color. Sunbathe, but don't go out there to make a change in color in your life. Great natural healing book. Says at the back, excessive X-rays, estrogens, work-related exposures to harmful chemicals cause cancer. Check with your physician about the need for X-rays. Wow, this is getting heavy. They might get busted next. How many doctors know this, what I just read? To date, when I've asked them, 0. I say these things and they go, there's no proof. And I go, this is on the American Cancer Society's brochure. Okay, this is the largest research group into cancer in this country that's privately funded and partly funded in other ways. Today's scientists think most cancers may be related to lifestyle environment. They must have read my stuff, and it's copyrighted by the School of Natural Healing. They're ripping me off. What you eat, drink, and if you smoke, and where you work and play. So the good news is you can help reduce your own cancer risk by taking control of the things in your daily life. What can I say? Okay, so I like to use this type of material, and I give this to people, and when they go, well, isn't this a bit of a radical food program? No, this is just the general guidelines by the American Cancer Society. How many of my patients that have cancer have heard of these guidelines? 0.
They weren't out until about 8 years ago. That doctor who you showed up that did that, when he started investigating, then all of a sudden they acknowledged the Cabbage family. Before that, before 7, 8 years ago, they didn't acknowledge any of this.
So this has only been out 8 years. Yeah. Takes doctors about 25 to catch on. That's what I've experienced. 15 to 25 years before medical doctors have this type of research and material in their office. Because it has to come from where? Medical school, and work its way on up.
Want to put distilled water up on that?
Thank you very much. I certainly do. Never drink tap water. My patients are all forbidden from drinking water out of the tap. Anisha, since she's come over from England, has not been able to take a bath at our house because the tap water smells like a chlorine gas attack when you turn it on, and it irritates her skin. You can get chlorine filters to put on showers, and you can do things, but it's just, you know, your city waters, your public waters, chlorine, fluoride. Does anybody know where the fluoride comes from that they use in treating water for our teeth? Aluminum waste. That's a nice one. And the incidence of Alzheimer's disease is skyrocketing, and they're contributing that to aluminum poisoning. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. Most of the women that come to me that have had mastectomies have also been asked to do a little radiation, and many of them chemotherapy. Medical doctors' standard treatment for invasive breast cancer is chemotherapy. Well, let's take a look at a government study on chemotherapy and breast cancer and see what they say. Has anybody ever heard of the General Accounting Office, the GAO? Okay, the GAO is a branch of the United States government that is designed to do statistical reports, and our tax dollars pay them millions of dollars a year to statistically study things. Like, are doorknobs the right height, or do people hurt their hips on them? All sorts of crazy stuff. Okay? Also, health issues. They were asked by the House of Representatives and Congress to see if breast cancer was efficient at all in helping people with breast cancer, if chemotherapy worked. So they did a study of 10 years of the usage of chemotherapy in breast cancer, and they entitled that report, Breast Cancer, Patients Have Yet to Realize the Benefits of Chemotherapy. Okay? Before the report was printed, they got their butts slammed down by multiple government agencies and the AMA and the Department of Health Sciences. In the first time in the history of the GAO were they told not to print their report or to change the name of it? Does this show you the power of the pharmaceutical industry and the American Medical Association in the United States? They were forced to change the title of the report from that to breast cancer patient survival. Sounds a little different than patients have yet to receive benefits from chemotherapy. And they were so upset about that, they printed the letters inside the report that they got slammed from, where they had to change the name of their report. They still got away with that. Anybody can have this report for free. You just write United States General Accounting Office, Washington, D.C. You want their report, which is the February 1989 report entitled Breast Cancer Patient Survival. But let's see what they say. Oh, they say a lot in here. But they have one nice page that says conclusion, that says, how is this possible? That is, what would explain our consistent finding that there is no observable improvement in breast cancer patient survival, even though the use of chemotherapy has increased considerably in the last 10 years. Okay? So there's no proof that chemotherapy works for breast cancer. None, and nobody has ever had their life extended by the use of it. I say the opposite is true, and I would like them to research how the lifespan has been decreased by the use of chemotherapy, but they haven't studied that to date. United States General Accounting Office, Washington, D.C., zip code 20548. And the report is February 1989. So when I say that, no, because it's a government agency, so it's like FBI Washington, and it gets there. Secret Service Washington. George Washington probably still be there, but he lost too much blood. 1989. So this has been out for almost, 3-4 years now. And every doctor I talk to still thinks that chemotherapy works. They're still experimenting with it. People aren't getting better. Now, if chemotherapy doesn't work at all for breast cancer, according to statistical reports, what do you think it's doing for other cancers? Yeah. Absolutely not. This is the only one, and I have a feeling you're never going to see another one as long as the AMA and the pharmaceutical industries are pulling the strings in Washington. But I just wanted you to see this. It's available to all of you. And you can see how this added with some of my handouts, and then I can say, well, Mrs. Jones, there are opinions to the contrary by the largest organizations on cancer and the American government. See the power in that? Because that's my job. I'm going up against the men in the white coats. I got to do a heck of a lot of singing and dancing in my office. I can't just say, oh, well, poke root cures cancer, because they're going to laugh at me. Now again, most people that come to me have been prepped. Okay, and a lot of people come into my office and they say, oh, I'm so glad I could get an appointment with you. I have cancer and I know that I'm going to be well because my friend did, and I know that you're going to heal me. And you know what happens? They get well. Their belief system is so strong and powerful, I could wrap up magic markers and have them think it was Moxa sticks and they get better. Oh, Moxa. I like superheating breast cancer, and Moxa, which is just basically mugwort rolled in a stick, an Artemisia species, and the Chinese use this, and you burn it over the area, and it heats the area up. Sometimes they put it on acupuncture needles, which I don't do, and sometimes they put it directly on the skin and burn it in a cone until it burns down, and then you pull it off. Sometimes they put a slice of ginger under that, and sometimes they... thank you. Here's some moxa here. It's just mugwort. Sometimes they blend other herbs with it. It's very fluffy, like dried mullein or red raspberry, burns real easy. And the Chinese roll it into sticks and then burn it over an area just by holding the stick. And, yes?
I don't understand. What do you mean by burn it over the area?
Oh, well, you can take loose moxa like this, which I don't suggest anybody does, because it's kind of like you got to be a little bit of a pyrotechnic operator to do it. Pinch it like this, put a cone over, here's large intestine 4, like this, touch it to a match, and it'll burn down like an incense cone, but quickly. And what it does is it heats up the underlying tissue tremendously. And, well, See that little hole there? Yes, it does. So most people will take a slice of garlic or ginger, put it on the hand, a very thin slice, and put this corn on top of it, and then let it burn out. What I do is just put it directly on the skin, and then the person's saying it's hot, it's hot. Wow, this is hot. Knock it off into an ashtray. Okay? The only downside to this is it smells exactly like pot when it burns. Absolutely, like cannabis. It does not get you high, but people that come in the next patient in my office think that I'm a drug addict. And with the long hair, I'm hung. Okay, circumstantial evidence is too much. I'm not really, yeah, it's mugwort. I'm not really advocating this, and I don't burn a lot of herbs, but I like really heating the body. One of the reasons I use the hot and cold. So here's another way. You could use a hot castor oil pack, but it's just another way to play with hot and cold, and it's burning herbs. It's kind of fun, and the Chinese believe that it works a lot. What it does mainly is it stimulates the area underneath where you're burning tremendously, partly because of the heat, but some people believe that herbs, when they're burning, have some ability. I do, and that's why you see Anisha with the sage every morning, just to kind of clear this place out energetically and have a new day to start with. So I just wanted to tell you that that's something I play with too. So it's important to, find your research to the contrary, because there's research out there that will back up everything. Okay? You can buy research. You can say to someone, I would like you to research whether or not the ink in these pens in the fume is carcinogenic. And they will research it, and they will find that it's carcinogenic. You can also buy a research person and say, I'd like you to research it and see if the smell that comes off this is really harmful, because we don't think it is and we manufacture this. The research comes out that it isn't. Okay? They'll take this, inject it into rats, do an LD50 test, and find out that you can inject this ink subcutaneously or intravenously in some amount, and it doesn't affect the rats. You see what I'm saying? So research is bought. I just tend to believe the research I want to believe. Doctors believe the research that they want to believe. So it just matters which way you want to go. My research, though, tends to be a lot more positive. And we'll see with AIDS. I mean, here's my research. Science tells us that poison oak and poison ivy and stinging nettle are plant irritants that cause dermatitis. Okay? Now, I teach at some areas where there's a lot of it around, and all the students are afraid to go on an herb walk. And when I got to Omega Institute about 5 years ago, they told me there was 150 cases of poison ivy out of 600 people. How many did I find? 2. Okay, what were the under 148? Heat rash, mosquito bites, infected scratches. Okay, but everybody was freaked out because they thought the poison ivy was on the rampage. The only 2 people I found with it were the gardening people and the landscaping professionals. One of them had it and one of the gardeners, because they were in it all day long. As a side interest to that, growing everywhere all over is jewelweed. Okay, jewelweed is a specific antidote for poison ivy. And in fact, you'll even find that in a botany book like the field guide that doesn't even give medicinal uses, but it'll say for poison ivy. It's one of the few things they mention in there. And it also goes back to Dr. Christopher saying that wherever you can stand next to a plant that in enough dose could make you ill, there's always a plant within reach that is the antidote. Nature has balanced itself very perfectly that way. But anyway, so there was a lot of hysteria. But you know how I feel about poison oak and poison ivy, which I seem to get. I just got over a case on my ankles, and I get it numerous times a year. I think it's an immune stimulant. Because think about it. You get this rash on your body. What happens during your immune system? Your body goes invasion alert, invasion alert, invasion alert. Okay? Your body knows that you have a plant irritation in your system. It increases your T cell count. It increases your interferon production. It boosts up the immunoglobulin on the surface of the B cells. Your macrophage production increases and they eat more material. And what happens? Your body gets cleaned. Think about that. That's an immune response from a plant. So are these plants out here in the woods because they're curses from the devil? Or are they out there to stimulate our immunity so we can be healthy and react better to nature? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's my opinion. See how you can just look at something from the other side and it looks totally differently? So I could be wrong and they could be wrong. But what happens if we freak ourselves out and depress ourselves with what the medical doctors believe? Stress, and we depress our immunity. What happens if you believe what I believe? You stimulate your immune system and get better quicker. So we don't know which one's right. Why not believe the way that's going to make you healthy anyway? Does that make sense? Yeah. So I always try to look at things from the other side and see, hey, maybe this is nature's way of healing me, because I believe, my belief system is that everything that grows outside of this house was put there as a gift to me. It went real quiet in here.
When I first started out on the farm, my ankles broke out a lot, and they don't anymore.
Yeah. You were healed.
Nothing has changed. I'm still out there even more now that we're there full time.
Yeah.
And I just don't have the rashes that I got at first.
Absolutely. Yeah. You were healed. Nature's a great healer. Sometimes you don't have to eat it. You just have to run through it. Nature can also wake you up. You catch a rubus species around the ankle and it'll take you right down.
You're right about your writing, too.
What? Pretty hard to read?
No,
Sorry. I noticed it's degenerated over the years. My voice has gotten louder and my writing's gotten worse. Okay. Let's look at a few... let's see. Do I have any more handouts here on cancer we should talk about? Oh, I just have an interesting handout. After general immunology, there's a picture here. This is a wonderful picture of a macrophage going after a bacteria. Macrophage just means big eater, and this is a cell that when it is in our bloodstream is sometimes called a monocyte, but actually then it can turn into a macrophage. And it will send out this alien attack, this is a piece of bacteria, grab it and eat it up. And we have all kinds of macrophages all over our body, and sometimes it's important for people to see this so they can visualize how their body's healing itself. Who knows if this is true or not? I mean, you know, some people say we never landed on the moon, it was just a Hollywood production. I don't know, but since it's positive, you know, since it's positive, I show people, hey, this might be what's going on inside your body. These aliens are eating up the bacteria, the cancer cells. This is a picture of a cancer, malignant cancer cell here, and these little puff balls around the outside are T cells. Here you can see the T cells eating up the cancer, and then you can see the T cells leaving and the cancer dead. Okay, so this is an electron microscopic picture of T cells eating malignancy. Yes?
Notice on that macrophage picture, it's Lenhart Nelson that did the photography for it.
Uh-huh.
Do you know if he has, if he's ever done it where he's filmed it, where it shows it actually doing it?
Do you know why you can't? Yeah. Anything you look at under an electron microscope is dead the minute you turn it on. And there was a man, we won't go into this name, Rife, if any of you have ever heard, who built a microscope where you could see it alive, and his equipment was smashed, and he was died an alcoholic, committed suicide, I think, as the story goes.
Geographically, we were given that information. Where to get that?
Wonderful.
That picture. I have to look for it. You mentioned it before. I'll want to get it.
And Rife also invented a numerous machine. Pardon me? The Rife machine. He developed a microscope that was 17,000 power where you could see bacteria and virus live. The hardest part, of course, is illuminating that, because once you get to 17,000 power, it's black. So he developed a laser that he could illuminate it with, and he brought medical doctors in from all over the world that looked at it, saw it, and he was written up in all the magazines as being the new genius to invent the 17,000 power microscope where you could see bacteria and virus live. Shortly after that, his office was invaded by military professionals and the federal government. They smashed all his equipment, put him in jail. This was in La Jolla, California. He also developed a machine called the Rife generator that he could watch, and he could tune a frequency and kill the bacteria and virus, and then he set out to heal about 200 people with malignant cancer in about a week. Okay? Wonder why his office was smashed. To this date, nobody has bothered or been able to come up with a microscope near that intensity that would work. Why not? Who wants their office smashed and thrown in jail? I mean, you put your finger in the fire and it burns. Wow, I don't think I'll put my finger in the fire anymore, right?
I know a lady that has a Rife machine that does the frequencies for cancer.
Yeah.
She had it in her liver, and she put it over her liver and adjusted the frequency. She had a bowel movement later, and she expelled the cancer.
Yeah.
And
Now,
it was in like 2 weeks.
and I've heard this, and so I'm not promoting Rife machines, but they're around, and I've heard this. My fear always with a machine like this is that person will expel a tumor and then have their martini the next day, or their hamburger, do you know what I'm saying, and just do it again. So the problem, of course, with machinery like that, even if it does work, is there's no education that has gone on in the process. But I'm not condemning the machinery. There are people trying to make it now and whatever. David?
I would imagine that the microscope was smashed because it proved he was right.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, you know what he said too? This kind of shakes the house of cards of medicine. He said that bacteria and virus were the same. One would just transmute into the other and then transmute back in your body. Whoa! That goes against everything medicine believes, everything. And he said, well, that's not a guess, look! And he showed it under a microscope, the transmutation from bacteria to virus. And doctors were astounded, and then, whoops, the hammer came down.
The white tiger on the front of the June '86 National Geographic, for those who didn't get it.
Good.
June '86 National Geographic, David showed it, has a white tiger on the front of it. Go to a library, they have all copies.
All right.
June '86.
I've got the Rife report at home. I have the copies.
Yeah, he has the Rife report at home, and so if anybody's interested, they can talk to him. You have the book?
He's back on macrophages.
Oh, back on, yeah, the picture of macrophages in the June '86 copy of National Geographic.
Has a white tiger on the front cover.
White tiger on the front cover, great.
If
And then I read,
the same thing's transmuting, and that kind of blows the whole theory of why antibiotics kill bacteria and don't affect virus.
yeah,
Something doesn't
well, it takes time for that to happen. No, there's over a period of time he felt that that could happen and that they could interchange. You know, so. Now, I also have read about 50 immune books and tried, you know, to pick out of one of them what I thought would be a good representation of the chart of the cells of the immune system. They all seem so complex, I drew my own, and mine's as complex as the rest of them. I don't know why I threw that in there, but if you're interested, it's something you can look at, maybe answer a few questions, but never mind. And on the back, there's a glossary of some of the abbreviations. Forget it. Unless you're interested in going deeper into immunology. Sometimes you do that. Sometimes you think, I can simplify this, and by the time you're finished, it's more complicated than the person you were trying to simplify. Okay, let's talk about a few more people that are current here. I have their files with me, so I can just share with you a few more stories about cancer to wrap up our cancer. This man here, oh, absolutely. Thank you for saying that, because I want to remind this. The girl got well with breast cancer, malignant tumor, absolutely disappeared in 10 days. Wow. She sent me a lot of clients. Moved out of where she was living into a more rural area, met a man, got married, had 2 children. Okay? Think that same thing would have happened with one breast? No. I don't think so. Okay? What can I say? At 23 years old with one breast, you got to find a heck of a guy to be in love with you. Okay? Whether that is right or wrong or indifferent, that's the society we live in. Okay? That's right. Okay? She probably would have gotten cancer again just from the depression. Okay? She called me about a couple years after her second child, said, I have breast cancer again. It's back in the breast. And I go, well, what have you been doing? That answered the question. She said she fell off the program. I'd like to rephrase that as she leapt off the program. Do you hear what I'm saying? I said, you know what to do. And she was crying. I said, you know what to do. And she says, I got to come and see you. I just need to see you. I said, okay, come in. And I gave her a supercharge of energy, put her on the same programs, went right away again. Why is this now? She's a cancer type, okay? We all have, and this is something you see in iridology, we all have inherent weaknesses. Mom has some weaknesses, Dad has some weaknesses. They make us, and we have weaknesses. We have strengths too. But we all have certain weaknesses. Mine is cardiovascular, and secondly, it's gastrointestinal. Some people it's lung. Some people it's arthritis. Some people it's hepatic. Do you hear what I'm saying? Hers was congested lymphatic system, especially in this area, with a predisposition. I'm not going to go into this, but for any of you that know iridology, in the breast areas of her iris there was a stair-step lacuna. A stair-step lacuna means a predisposition for cancer in that area. It doesn't mean she has it, but she has been born with an ability for degeneration in this breast. I see that in a lot of people with cancer. Sometimes I don't see anything, but I saw it with her. That let me know that no matter what she did in her life, she would be constantly wanting to create a degeneration in this breast. She has inherited that. Now, I see people that don't show that, and then I know it's their lifestyle and environment that is absolutely 100% responsible for it. But with her, she inherited that too. So she says to me sometimes when I've talked to her, why do I have to be so good? Because you're you, okay? You can't smoke and drink and party and eat dairy products that would congest your lymphatics. You have to exercise every day. Do you hear what I'm saying? So she has to specifically take care of herself because she's predisposed to that. All of us in here are predisposed to things, and some of us in here that are older have already experienced them. Yes?
It seems to me also that thing of repetition, for example, maybe a child who dislikes his parents for whatever reason, the more he yells at them or does disobedient things, the better this child will get at that. So also in the example of someone who is in a comfort zone of poor diet or poor exercise or poor environment, the more they do that, the better they get. So if they change that, the more and the more that a person can do exercise, diet, environment, herbs, all these things, the better they'll get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do we hear about cancer? This is a typical day in my office. Mrs. Jones comes in. I have cancer of the uterus. Well, can you tell me your health history? Well, yes, I had cancer in the right breast, and I had a mastectomy and a little radiation, and the doctor said, we got it all and you're fine, and that was 1985. He said, we got every little tentacle and you're okay. And then in 1989, I got cancer in the left breast. He took off the left breast, said they got everything. They gave me a little radiation to be sure, even a little chemo now because she had a history of cancer. They said they got it all, she's fine. A couple years later, cancer of the uterus. Okay, my first question is, Mrs. Jones, what did you do to stop growing cancer in your body? Nothing. Okay. She wasn't even aware that she was responsible for this. She thought she had cancer because it was from some alien species from Uranus or something. Do you know what I'm saying? People don't realize that they create this cancer. She goes, well, what do you mean? I am responsible? Yeah, you're responsible. What have you done to make changes in your lifestyle? Nothing. And so cancer or anything, whooping cough, fevers, whatever is your inherent weakness just will repeat itself. You can cut it off. It'll come back somewhere else. Cancer is systemic, and it's created by 100 different causes, from your mind to what you eat to everything. And unless you heal that, it'll just keep coming back in a regular way. Yes?
Dr. Christopher says it's in the bloodstream, so
Absolutely.
we have to cleanse them.
Absolutely. And he said that everybody he saw with cancer had a dirty liver, so we got to clean the liver. And this is why it's systemic, and this is why this program works, because you're dealing with it at all the levels it can be found at. And when you change what the American Cancer Society says here to do, today's scientists think most cancers are related to lifestyle and environment. So if cancer is caused by lifestyle and environment, changing the lifestyle and environment is the cure for cancer. I didn't say it, they said it, right? It's estimated now that 70% of cancers by the American Cancer Society are caused by lifestyle and environment. I think it's 100.
What do you think about, like, different pap smears?
I think that, you know, I'll follow Dr. Mendelssohn's advice in Confession of a Medical Heretic, which is whenever you go to a doctor, your chances of getting sick are worse. So I would generally suggest that people don't go to doctors' offices, but in a way that is a non-harmful technique. There are people now that say that there are problems with that. It can cause irritation and other things. I would say about, it seems as though almost every other woman that comes in my office has had a cone biopsy. It's amazing. Has been told that they have a negative pap smear, has been told that they have a pre-cancer condition on the cervix, which, if we look at the uterus, I'm not Kay Thorne. Okay. The cervix kind of looks like this. Okay, the entrance of the cervix, the entrance of the uterus. Your mother would probably be ashamed of me for my drawings here. But when they do a cone biopsy, it's a cone biopsy because it's shaped like a cone, and really what they're doing is cutting the cervix off. Now they do it with cryosurgery. They freeze it off. And this is very common, incredibly painful, not so much at the time, but certainly afterwards. You had one. Yeah, and don't feel bad. How many people in here have never had any type of surgery? Okay, not anywhere near half. What about tonsils, the appendix, you know? Yeah, so we got 4 out of this group. I mean, you know, we're all susceptible to that.
I was diagnosed with having cervical cancer.
Yeah.
And I was real fatigued, and I went down, I had a pap smear done. Then they said, well, now you have to have a biopsy done. Now, biopsies are different from PAPs.
Yeah.
Then they diagnosed,
Absolutely.
Then they said, yeah, now you've got a 3 going into 4. If you don't do this, this, and this, in 2 months it's going to go off in the rest of your body. You're going to have all your organs removed.
Yeah.
I said, thank you very much. I'll invite you to my funeral. I'm leaving. I'm going to, you know, and I left.
Yeah.
I came back 6 months later with a clean bill of health.
Yeah.
I knocked out a palate that was like this, shrunk it,
Yeah.
and disappeared. With doing wheatgrass implants, a vegetarian diet, and juices and the herbal therapy. It took 6 months to
Sure.
knock it out.
What happens when you take your car into a shop that has a salesman? Okay, you say, I'd like an oil change. And they go, oh, sure, we can change your oil. Wow, Mr. Jones, did you know your battery terminals are corroded? This tire's a little bald. Blow it on the highway, into oncoming traffic, decapitated. Do you know what I'm saying? The next thing you know, you're ready to go next door. And he goes, well, if you need a new car, my brother-in-law, here's his card. Do you know what I'm saying? This is what doctors do. Oh, stage 3, don't catch cancer now. Next thing you know, it's in your brain. Do you know what I'm saying? This is just the oldest sales technique in the world. And what they're saying is true, because they're assuming that you're absolutely stupid, ignorant, and that you will not go out and make any changes in your lifestyle, and that cancer will invade your entire body. Do you hear what I'm saying? So they're not lying to us, and neither is the guy in the garage. He's right. Our battery terminals are corroded. Do they ever uncorrode by themselves? No. They need to be cleaned. Okay? But that doesn't mean you need a new battery and to have your whole electrical system checked. Yes?
What exactly is a biopsy?
Biopsy is just stealing tissue. It's a surgical procedure where they cut a piece of your tissue out. Yeah. And so if they do a biopsy of the liver, they go right through into your liver, grab a hunk of liver, and yank it out. Do I talk that loud? I get excited. Yes.
Okay, now we've been talking diseases and problems of the body since we've been here.
Yeah.
It all relates to dirt.
Yeah.
Clean the body up, and the body will take care of itself.
Absolutely.
In every disease situation.
Yeah. And you know, one way I like to look at that too, thank you. Everybody's raising their voice. This is an evangelist meeting here. What I have seen too, and I talked about this before, and we'll especially talk about it a little bit now with cancer, is I see that anytime anything goes wrong anywhere in the body, there's a blockage. Now, what kind of blockage? Well, how about blood? Maybe the bloodstream isn't getting to the area. Or maybe it's a blockage of nutrients in the blood caused by our hand going for Twinkies and not for vegetables. Okay? Maybe it's a blockage of emotions, and our emotions are blocked. Maybe it's a blockage of the lymphatic fluid, that cannot remove the dirt. I just heard that from our system. Okay? Maybe it's a blockage because the muscles are so tight and they're so contracted, they're not letting anything flow to that area. Maybe it's subluxated vertebrae that are pinching off nerves that are causing deterioration of an organ. But however you look at it, something has been blocked off to that area in order for it to degenerate. And what do we know is the herb that's the #1 unblocker? Dr. Christopher is one of his favorite herbs, cayenne. You put cayenne in your body, your bloodstream starts going, and lobelia, because lobelia sedates and relaxes. And this is why the Thomsonian system, or the Brigham Young system, or the Dr. Christopher system of herbology works so well using large quantities of cayenne and lobelia. How's our time, David? Great. Just hang in there a little more. Let's look at a couple people. Brenda Michaels. Wow. Brenda Michaels. I can say that out loud. She is in the profession now. Brenda had breast cancer in her left breast. They cut it off. She didn't change her lifestyle. Breast cancer in her right breast. They cut it off. She didn't change her lifestyle. Finally, breast cancer, ovaries, uterus, and riddled her body. And they said, you have to do chemotherapy. She took one chemotherapy pill. And she said it felt like someone hit her body with a sledgehammer. And just inside, the voice went on, this cannot be right. Okay. Brenda decided to go the path of natural healing. She has been cancer-free for 12 years. Not only did she get rid of her cancer that she had, that was riddled with her, that they suggested chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, the works. She got rid of her cancer naturally. She is one of the most dynamic healing individuals I know. She has now started the Center for Life-Challenging Illness, and she counsels people. She calls herself a peer counselor because she's experienced it personally. She does a television show. Just an incredible lady. One of my patients done some incredible healing. Wonderful man here from Latvia came to see me. He had prostate cancer. Doctors cut out the prostate. He had testicular cancer. They cut off his testicles. He obviously could no longer get an erection, so they put a plastic implant in his penis that he would pump, and it would give him an erection. He got infected, and it infected all of his kidneys and bladder, and they had to take the plastic out of his penis. He called me. I first worked with him with his infection. That's the tape you heard from my answering machine about his bacterial infection clearing up when the doctors couldn't clear it up after all that surgical mess. Cancer removed from prostate, cancer removed from testicles, went into the doctors. They said, we got some bad news for you. They said, you have bone cancer over your entire body. Nothing you can do. Go home. Enjoy the rest of your life. Play some golf. Came to see me. We've been working since '92. Almost a year. His latest report from his oncologist, 97% of his bone cancer is gone. They only saw one spot. Okay, amazing. In a year. Okay, and this guy's great. He loves life. He's a salesman. He sells jumbo jets all over the world. We had him reduce his flying and work a lot because high flying is a lot of radiation exposure. He doesn't need any more radiation. I told him not to go in and get any more tests from the doctor, but he wanted to get one final bone scan. And maybe the damage that was done by the bone scan was overweighed by the lift he got when his doctor said, you've had a miracle, we don't know how this has happened. And, and you know what he said to the oncologist? He put his head down and he shook it like this. I was told? And he said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Okay? And you'll get a lot of doctors that'll say that.
The doctor didn't want to know.
Oh, absolutely not. Because what would happen if the doctor knew?
He wouldn't have the belief in his system.
And,
Liar.
and beyond that, he would have to do something about it. Okay? And that's why when you call the Center for Disease Control and you ask them how many people have survived AIDS, what will they tell you? 0. Okay? Absolutely 0. I have 16 patients now that have overcome AIDS, and we're going to talk about them a little later, as soon as we finish with cancer. This woman just was so scared, she decided to have her radiation and do my treatment. She was such a nice person and had such a positive attitude and was willing to do everything so much, I decided to work with her. Okay? Like I said, where's my cutoff point? Chemotherapy. I don't work with people who undergo chemotherapy. So she's doing a little localized radiation on her breast, following my program, doing fine. This lady, stockbroker, came to me, colorectal cancer, 37, I'd have to look it up, 37, 38, 39. Who needs to be accurate when you're counting bowel polyps? But anyway, bowel polyps, colorectal cancer. They said to her, bowel surgery, if not ileostomy or some type of colostomy. She's just a very active, energetic, outgoing, dynamic person. You know, when people walk in my office with cancer, it usually takes me 2 seconds to see if they're a winner or a loser, okay? Because you can see if they are withdrawn, introverted, and scared, or right out there saying, and I didn't want to do what that jerk said I should do. You know what I'm saying? They got some fight in them. She had one of the most fight, the biggest amount of fight of any of my patients. 6 months, no bowel polyps. Okay? She's a winner. She's right out there ready to go. Now, sometimes I have to turn them into winners. I have to do a lot of kicking in the glutamus maximus to get these people excited and energetic. This lady was wonderful. 86 years old. And from Hot Springs, Arkansas, the Deep South. She went to the medical doctors. Let's see her history. You're gonna have a laugh out of this one. When she was 68, she went for a checkup. She had never been to a doctor, and her relatives said you should go for a checkup. She went, and they diagnosed her with leukemia. And they said it's so far advanced, there's really nothing we can do, but we want to put you on some chemical therapy. She said, the heck with that, and went home. And walked in my office at 86. And that was the last time she saw a doctor. I mean, I said, what did you do? What did she do? Breakfast, cream of wheat, rye toast and coffee. Lunch, canned fruit and a hamburger. And dinner, a small steak and a baked potato. Okay? And I'm like, what's going on here? And she said, I said, well, you know, I asked her about the doctor. She goes, oh, the heck with them. I didn't believe those guys. You hear that? Yeah. She just didn't believe it. Now, I think if we tested her, we'd probably find her positive for leukemia, but she just ignored it and lived for 20 years with a disease that I've never heard of a 20-year survivor. Okay? You wouldn't find that statistically, medically. I believe she was diagnosed with hairy cell leukemia. Now, if you look up in, does anybody know about hairy cell leukemia? Prognosis, 6 months. It's one of the worst kinds of leukemia. She went back to the doctor at 86 because the relatives told her to, and they said she had bowel cancer. And so she was coming to me, you know, with, well, what should she do? At 86, I think she should keep eating hamburgers, her breakfast of rye toast. What am I going to say? I mean, this lady's a winner. As you can see, her file's empty. I saw her once. And, you know, at 86, I don't know what program she had going, but it was working. Okay? And there's a real rule that I have, which is if it isn't broken, don't fix it. She said, well, what do you think about the doctor said? And I said, I think he's crazy. She goes, I did too. And she walked out of my office, goodbye, that was it. I'm not going to put her on colonics. For me to put her on a health routine would be like, well, here's another example. A 96-year-old woman got ill, and it was the grandmother of a patient of mine. They took her to the hospital, and the hospital admitted her. They said she had bowel disease, and they wanted to do exploratory abdominal surgery. I went in and talked with the doctor. He was about 26 years old. And I said, what do you think you're going to find when you open up her gut? She's been living on rugula and coffee for 96 years. It's not going to be a pretty picture. You know, what are you going to suggest? A colostomy on a 96-year-old woman? And he argued with me to the point where there are private ambulance services in L.A., and I know one that has guys that are about 350 pounds, and big, strong guys, and you call them up and you say, I had the relatives do this, my aunt's in the hospital, and we'd like her to leave today. When? As soon as you can get here. And whatever the doctors say, ignore it. And they walked in, I remember this because I was in the hospital, and they walked in, and these guys just went in the room. I mean, massive men. They look like World Wrestling Federation. Wrapped her up and took her out, and the doctor says, you can't take her out of here. And I turned around, and the doctor was standing right here. It was a great moment in history. And I said, do I look like the kind of guy that you want to start trouble with? I used my intimidation routine, and he was just kind of like, and he went and got the head nurse, and in no time, down the stairs in the ambulance home. I mean, come on. Why do we want to do exploratory surgery on a 96-year-old person? What do you think we're going to find? What possible positive thing could have come out of that? Yeah. Oh, want the money, or they're fresh out of medical school. They haven't seen enough 96-year-old innards. I don't know. It's nuts. This person came to me with a squamous cell anal tumor. Very serious malignant tumor on the anus. Didn't want to really go my program. They suggested radiation surgery. I think I've mentioned her. They did some surgery to remove the tumor, but they couldn't remove it all because it was attached to her anus, and they just didn't want to carve her all up. They did radiation therapy, minimal dosages, burn out the wall between her rectum and her vagina, and when I examined her the second time, fecal matter was pouring out her vagina. Okay? So the reason I say this is because this was accurate 1993 pinpointed low-dose radiation therapy for cancer. Whoops. This is the whoops syndrome.
What's her status right now, Diane?
Hanging in there. And we'll talk about a few hanging in there. She is not incredibly willing to do natural healing, not incredibly willing to do doctors anymore, kind of sitting on the fence. Yeah, taking a few herbs, taking a few vitamins, going to a psychic healer, you know, a 1-900 tarot card, everything. Kind of doing everything in a halfway, which doesn't seem to get people well. Are we lunchtime? Okay. Another wonderful woman wanted to have a mastectomy and a little bit of radiation, but was absolutely so positive, wanted to do both. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, if you are very comfortable with your life, you don't mind removing a breast, really believe that radiation is going to help you, I won't turn them away. Like I said, chemotherapy I will, and this is just out of my book, so I'm working with her. She's doing great. What I'm doing with her and what I told her is, look, you're going to the doctor, you're having your breast cut off and having whatever might be remaining left hit with radiation. Sure, I know the radiation will destroy her immunity and maybe give her more cancer. So what am I doing? Changing her lifestyle and environment so she won't build cancer again in the other breast, the uterus, the ovaries, or whatever. Does that make sense? So she's on a prevention program. This woman came to see me. She had liver cancer after multiple other cancers, chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation, but her liver tumor was so big that they sent her home to die. It was the biggest I ever saw because it was sticking out the left side of her body about 4 inches, And last I looked, liver's on the right side of the body. Okay, so her tumor was about the size of a good-sized football. She was on full dosages of liquid morphine, miserable, scared, and dying. And she came with her husband. We sat down and had a great talk, had a good time. My little voice said, this isn't going to happen. But I don't say that out loud ever. I don't do malpractice like the medical community. And I still believe that they can be well. But the little voice was talking to me on this one. But I said, okay, look. I said, what do you want? And she goes, the morphine. She goes, the pain is so intense. And I can't think. And who wants to go out of life confused, a drug addict, and scared? So I said, well, let's start working on that liver right away. We started with some liver flushes. We used Dr. Christopher's liver gallbladder formula. And in about 7 to 10 days, she was off of all the morphine. Partly because I took some of the pressure off her liver and got it working a little better. Partly because I stopped any further tumor growth with chaparral, which absolutely halts tumor growth, with red clover, which does, and the red clover combination. And I also gave her some herbal nervine and painkiller herbs. And the next time, the first visit, I had to talk with her husband because she was so stoned she was incoherent. And the second visit, I could talk to her directly. And she came to see me a couple more visits off of absolutely all painkillers, alert, bright, and much relieved. And I said, what do you want to do now? And she goes, I want to die. She goes, I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of life. I feel like I'm going to die. I want to die. And I go, so what do you want to do? She goes, I want to have a party. I said, let's have a party. And she had a party at her house, invited all her friends. She goes, I don't want people to see me in a hospital bed. I want to see people to see me like this. Made herself up, dressed up, on no drugs, no morphine. Died 2 days after the party. Husband called me and thanked me 100 times. Okay? So I just want you to see that every patient you have will die. Okay? This is something I didn't realize at first. I thought just other people's patients died. Every one of my patients is going to die. So Dr. Christopher talked a lot about this, knowing when the time has come, meditating on when the time has come, listening to what your patients say. She didn't say to me, I want a full natural healing routine. She said, I want to die. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm hurting. I'm done with this. One last story. And the reason I tell you all these stories is not to show you I'm some great natural healer, is to show you the routines, the things I do, and how I work with various types of cancer. Hope everybody knows that because I'm not into boasting about this. One more story before lunch and a final cancer story so you can see all the people that got well and healed themselves in weeks, the people who are on the fence playing with it but hopefully won't create another cancer, and a few of the not-so-good stories and a few of the good final endings. I was called by a man. He said, will you please come and see my wife? She's in the hospital. She has cancer. And my answer, of course, is no. I don't go to the hospital and consult with medical doctors. And, well, I think red clover would be better than chemotherapy. And then, you know, I mean, we got to get real here. I said, no. And he goes, please. And I go, no. I don't come to hospitals. And he goes, look, she's had cancer for 2 years. They've removed part of her liver, 1 kidney, 1 lung. She's had it in her brain. She's riddled. They've done every surgery they can do. She has hardly any organs left. She's been on chemotherapy for a year. They finally stopped it. She's had so much radiation, she's burned over her entire body. And they're letting her smoke pot in the room. And I was still no, and he says, he was a rock and roller, pretty famous guy, and he says, I'll give you 2 tickets free to my next concert, front row, backstage pass. And I said, okay. I'm not beyond a little bribe. And I said, but he says, she's in an isolation ward, you won't have to talk to a doctor, fine. I went up and met her, 35 years old. Okay, she's in bed, she's had brain surgery too, tubes here, vomiting when I walked in the room, vomiting, chemotherapy, vomiting, smoking pot, boy, half hour in that room and I was seeing stars. And I said to her, I said, well, what do you want to do? And she goes, I just want to get out of here. I said, well, let's get out of here. she said, can I be well? I said, I don't know. You know, I can't answer that question. But you want to go home? And she said, I want to go home. I said, let's go home. Husband got her out of the hospital that day. I said, on your way home, buy a Champion juicer at Audrey's. I told him how much, where it was. He picked it up, went home. I met them over at the house later and set up on a routine. First thing is her skin was severely burned. It looked like an alligator. So I had him skin brush her 3 times a day and do the 3-oil massage on her, Dr. Christopher's 3-oil massage program. Within a couple weeks, her skin was back to normal. It was unbelievable. I had her doing liver flushes. Sometimes she'd puke them, sometimes she wouldn't. Over the next months, this was in August, over the next few months she got better and better. Went over to her house one day and she was walking. Her hair was growing back. And at Christmas time, she had all the relatives, all the family at the house. She was walking, cooking, up and around, feeling great. And about 2 weeks into January, her husband called me and said, I think she's dead. And I went over to the house and she was dead. I was quite upset about this. I thought she was going in the right direction. And her husband said, don't be upset. He said that my wife got to regain her dignity, get her hair back, get her skin back, walk and talk and spend Christmas with her entire family one last time. He goes, we would have been seeing her in a hospital bed vomiting with tubes up her arm. And he thanked me. I still get occasional tickets, and I know multiple members of his family now. And he was a big black guy with a lot of big black relatives in a very bad part of Los Angeles, and a part of Los Angeles where white people sometimes get shot at. And I love black people. And like I said, Martin Luther King was one of my fans, and I'm not a bigot in any way, shape, or form. But when I went into his living room and all these big dudes hanging around, and his wife's dead, I thought this could be the end of Professor Cayenne. And instead, I got a lot of hugs. And I found that in every case I've had where one of my patients has died, it's been a beautiful ending and lots of hugs. And I think one of the main reasons is because I don't make promises. You know, I just say, hey, let's go to work. And most of the time, these people receive multiple benefits even if they do die. So there's no losing with natural healing. You just empower people, they feel better, and there's lots and lots of happy endings. And the main reason I share that with you is basically so you will not be afraid to work with anybody. I don't turn anybody away unless they got a bad attitude and they won't be healed. So be careful. Tomorrow David's going to talk to us about legalities and ways to be careful. And this afternoon I'm going to talk with you. We'll start out with AIDS. And then we'll also go into some case histories of some people with AIDS and a program that I'm doing now for AIDS, what's happened with some, what's happened with others. And then we'll talk about toenails to gallbladders and anything you want to bring up. And if any of you want to design a program for yourself, your relatives, your children, whatever, we'll do that all this afternoon.
You're going to cover the lady lawyer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's right in here. And I'm not even so sure of the 6. I would have liked to seen pictures to prove that one. Thanks for sitting down. I know that your butts go numb and it's hard, and hanging in there, you're great. Thank you. Let's have some lunch. Ginger. Yeah. This is, we just got a nice load of fresh organic ginger at the co-op. Was it the co-op? In Los Angeles. And Anisha brought 15, 20 pounds of it, cut it up and put it in our dehydrator for a few days. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. Came out nice. Yeah. I'll wait for our taste buds to calm down a little bit. I found this. I just thought I'd show it. Look at this tincture. Look at the color.
Wow.
Can I have one more piece of notebook paper from you? Well, that didn't come out too impressive, did it? Never mind that experiment. But you can see the color here. Does anybody have any guesses what this might be? Very good. St. John's wort flowers are yellow, Hypericum, very yellow. But when you pick them and you squeeze them, they turn blood red in your hands. In fact, if you pick enough of them, your hands just are stained red for a day or so. And so if someone gives you a St. John's wort tincture, it should be red, bright red, blood red. And I just wanted to show you that. Just, you know, this isn't something we really have to taste. You wouldn't taste it now after your ginger. It's a bit astringent tasting. But some herbs we don't have to taste. We can just know by color. You know, there are many things we look for: color, smell, taste. And already I think some of you are seeing that just in 2 days we're able to identify probably close to 20 plants already, just by smelling them, tasting them. And you'll have at least a quarter of the 100 herbs down through that analysis by the time we're done. Little things you'll know. If you go to get a St. John's wort tincture and you open it up and it's this color, something is drastically wrong. And I've seen them like this. I've seen them clear. And so maybe they made it with St. John's wort tincture, and it is, and it's the St. John's wort root. Or it's the St. John's wort leaf. But it wasn't the St. John's wort flower. That happens. Recycle pile. I had a lady come to see me, about 40 years old, and some of my patients are very serious, and she came in with a stack that makes my briefcase look like nothing, of papers about this high, carrying them like this in my office for a first visit. That's not that common. Usually I get the people dragging the sack of supplements, because I tell people when you come in for the first visit, I'd like to see all the things that you take, whether it's spirulina or phenobarbital. I want to see it, so they drag in this sack. But she had this stack of papers, and she sat down, and she proceeded to show me all types of tests that she had: blood tests, allergy tests, all types of tests from alternative practitioners and standard medicine. Medicine said that she was highly allergic. They said that she was allergic, I remember, to garlic, onions, corn, and a few other things, but she was okay with F, D, and C, red and yellow number 2, and something else. I mean, where do they come up with this? I did the same thing you did. I laughed. It went on, and it just got more ridiculous. It said, this was the first time I had seen it, it said that one of her problems is that she had ghost cells in her body. That's the noise I heard when I read that one. It just got sillier and sillier and silly. So I can't pay attention to a lot of people's paperwork, so I said, well, tell me what's wrong. And she started saying things to me, but they were a bit, nothing seemed to be connected. And she goes, but my doctor said to me to write down everything I experienced, because the doctors, the alternative practitioners, nobody could figure out what was wrong with her. And the doctor said for her to write down all the things that she experienced that were symptoms. And so she showed me her book. It was bigger than this whole book right here. It went on for about a year, and it read something like this. 7:55 woke up. 7:57 felt tingling down my right arm. 8:01 rumbling in my stomach. 8:03 felt a little acid in my throat. 8:07 pain in my right ear. Got up, had breakfast, felt cold in my stomach, slight pain and gas in my stomach, breathed in, throat mildly irritated, and it went on through the night for a year. I finally took her whole stack of papers, and she goes, what do you think? And I dropped them in my trash bin, at which point she lurched for them, and I put my foot on it. And she said, what's wrong with me? And I said, I know exactly what's wrong with you. You're alive. Okay? Think about it. Everything that she said, I can feel, you feel, we just don't pay attention to it. I looked at her, I examined her, I couldn't find anything wrong with her at all. She was what we might call a hypochondriac, or maybe just a victim of allergists, medical doctors, alternative practitioners that all feel that when someone comes to them, there must be something wrong with them, and we better figure out what it is and fix it. So I just wanted to bring up here, it's important to recognize when people come into you and there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, nothing major. Yes, we are all humans, we are all alive, and we do not compare to the model of anatomy and physiology set aside in Gray's Anatomy, right? That's the perfect human being, the perfect man and woman that has never existed, right? So if all of us right now were to go to the hospital in Salt Lake or Provo and say, give me the full run 7-day physical, half of us would be scheduled for surgery, and they'd be doing something about it because there's something wrong with all of us in this room, isn't there? Okay? So our job is not to correct people and try to go for a role model of perfection. Our job is to just help people be reasonably healthy and not get silly about all this and not get too crazed, right? So I told her that the greatest healing would be to help me take that pile of papers out to the dumpster, rip them up and unload them, which we did, tore up her book. She cried, trembled a little bit. Went home, and over the period of the next month, I set her up on some programs just for general health level raising, a nutritional morning drink, a few things like that. And I've talked to her from that day on. That was, oh, that had to be 15 years ago. And she's still healthy. She's a very healthy woman. Absolutely nothing wrong with her. Just a victim of medicine, allopathic and alternative. So I just thought I'd share that with you. We have to be able to recognize insanity also when it comes in our office. I had another woman come to see me that said that she had parasites. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, well, doctors keep testing me and saying I'm negative, alternative doctors and medical doctors. But she says, when I have bowel movements, I see parasites in the toilet. And I said, okay. And I set her up on some bowel formulas and Dr. Christopher's vermifuge. But it didn't seem to me, from what I saw and felt in her food program and all that, she didn't have the usual complaints of people with parasitical infections like dysentery and stomach cramps and fevers and all sorts of things. She seemed really healthy. And I said, well, are you sure you have parasites? And when I said that, she got really mad. I could see a strong attachment to her wanting to have parasites. The only parasite I seemed to find when I was taking a history on her was her husband, who hadn't paid his back taxes in 3 years, had all their furniture repossessed, and she was trying to support the whole family. I didn't mention that to her the first visit, but I told her to bring me in some parasites. If she's having these parasites come out, loads of them, buckets full with every bowel movement, bring it in. And so she brought me in a big jar of nothing but a piece of fecal matter and water. And she said, can't you see all the parasites? And I couldn't see any. And I said, there's no parasites in here. I said, one of us is incorrect, and I think it's you, because I haven't had a problem in the past seeing parasites. And she got incredibly mad and walked out of my office, and I never saw her again. But I just thought I'd share a few of these oddities with you, because there are some people out there that just either want to have a disease, or maybe the disease makes them get sympathy in their family, or for whatever reason. And so I just have had this happen, a couple times a year. Now here's even one more. We're on oddities right now. One more odd story for you, just to help you kind of see the things that you might run into. I had a woman come in my office, and a nice lady, fairly healthy, no major diseases that I'm aware of. And after taking a history and looking in her iris and talking to her, one of the questions I always ask people is, why are you here? What did you come here for? And she said, she says, well, I was attacked by aliens from outer space, put into a UFO, and they put an implant in my brain. And I'm like, oh, okay, implant in brain. Now, hey, I don't know anything about that. I see UFO conventions and conferences all over the world, and Maybe that kind of thing is happening. I don't know. But, hey, I'm a natural healer, and I'm certainly ready to deal with anybody with anything. So I thought, okay, let's put her on an anti-implant formula. What's that?
So one type up to space.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we can laugh about this because it's unusual, but I don't discount anything. So I go, okay, she's got an implant, and since it wasn't something like the parasites and I couldn't see this, I thought, well, let's develop an anti-implant formula. And she said she had an implant in her bowel, which I can get rid of anything in the bowel, right? And she had an implant in the brain. And so for the bowel, I used the Herbal Home Colonic and the Intestinal #1, and I told her that this, to date, through my experience, and she came from a referral, has removed everything from the bowel, and I had no doubts that it would remove the implant from the UFO. And also I put her on a brain formula of some kola nut and ginkgo to increase the circulation to the brain. Yes? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think at one point I said, you got to be kidding me, because it's, you know, it's a story that I don't hear that much. And she said, no. This is, you know, this is real. So I kept a straight face, and I still see her. In fact, I saw her 2 days before I left, and she said that the implant came out of her bowel and it dissolved in her head. And she really believed that it would with my formula, and I don't know if it did or not, but she believes it did, and if it did, it did, and I did my job, right? So I'm just telling you a few odd stories here. These are after lunch entertainment. Absolutely. And so, you know, I'm not going to judge what happened, but I know that, hey, I don't care if it's a Twinkie from when you were 4 years old or an alien implant. I know that intestinal corrective formula #1 and Dr. Christopher's formula will get everything out of the bowel. And I even sent her for a few colonics. And so whether or not this is real, it doesn't really matter to me. She feels better. She feels healed. And now she works with people. She has other people that she knows that has implants too, and she sends them to see me as the only practitioner she's ever known to get rid of unidentified flying object Martian implants or whatever. And hey, I get rid of them. You know, because I just work at it like anything, like a tumor or whatever. I get rid of them. And you know, and I'm not fooling around with her. You know, what damage could I do by cleaning someone's bowel or stimulating circulation to their brain? And I figure, you know, what do you think, if a medical doctor really believed that, what do you think he would have done? X-rays, maybe even surgery. You know, so hey, she's much better off. Yeah, I haven't seen one of these implants yet, but I've had a lot of people describe them to me when they have them come out of their body, and they all seem to describe them as some like silver cylindrical thing that comes out of them. So, yeah, I have multiple times, but there's always some reason they don't, or whatever, or it disappears, or whatever. But again, I'm not making a judge on it, but I'm just showing you all the different things, odd things after dinner, entertaining stories. How is our mouth? The ginger gone? Anisha?
Sure.
Let's talk a bit about AIDS. In your handouts, about a little more than halfway through, you'll see an article here. It says smallpox vaccine triggered AIDS virus. I just like to talk a little bit about AIDS in the beginning. Maybe all we're going to come up with is that we don't know much about AIDS and we really don't know what it is. And I think that's probably the case. The World Health Organization likes to try to cure disease on the planet. They're responsible for the world. Ooh, that's a pretty heavy responsibility. And so they take it upon themselves to force medical intervention on people all over the world who really can't defend themselves against it. Some of them don't even want it. Some of them are forced into it. Africa's a country we like to do that in, especially. You know, Africa is a country with a lot of trouble right now. There's so much civil war going on. Most of what we know and hear about Africa isn't even reality. Most of the people that have always starved to death, especially in Ethiopia, are not starving to death because there's a lack of food. You can go to Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, and it looks like Los Angeles. Cars driving around, people making money, businesses running. People are starving to death because of politics and civil wars that have been going on in Chad and Sudan since forever. Okay? So all these TV shows we see help these starving people. These people are being starved by their governments. It's a sad case. The same thing's going on in Somalia right now. So we like to go into Africa and do medical tests on these people. The World Health Organization decided to do a smallpox eradication program. They used a live vaccine and vaccinated people in the third world for 13 years. AIDS broke out all over the world, and they were a bit concerned that they might be partly responsible, or it might have something to do with this vaccine, so they hired an independent research team to research this and see if there was any correlation. The research team came back to them and said that there's a direct correlation. In fact, we think you created AIDS in the third world. Who fired the research team? Some of the researchers went to the London Times. This story broke in May 11th, 1987, and it's never been printed in the United States, although there's been hundreds of articles about this all over Europe and the rest of the free world. So we seem to have a bit of a news blockout going on in this country, as I said earlier. This is something you can just read later. It basically says that where the incidence of the smallpox vaccinations occurred, we have the same amount of AIDS. The countries where they did the most smallpox vaccinations have the most AIDS. There's only one country in South America out of all the countries in South America that has AIDS. It's Brazil. It's the only country where the World Health Organization did the smallpox vaccination program. Haitians developed AIDS, but not people from the Dominican Republic. Why? Because we didn't vaccinate in the Dominican Republic, only in Haiti. Okay? Now, I'm not saying this is the cause of AIDS, but it seems to be one of them. Okay? Imagine taking people whose immune system is depressed and bombarded on a daily level by living in a third world, hit with more bacteria and things, and then giving them a live vaccine that is clean now, but what do you think we'll find in 50 years? That it's loaded and loaded with other things. And it was made from infected pus from green monkeys. And I won't say much more about that. You can read this article, see what you think, and talk to your congressman about why we don't hear these in the United States. Here's another article from about a year ago, last April 1992, out of the London Times, saying AIDS, can we be positive? Talking about a world symposium in Amsterdam of immunologists and virologists from all over the world and what they thought about AIDS. This article and the results have not been printed in the United States either. I will not read this article. It's quite lengthy, but I will tell you a few things they say in there. They say that they think that HIV is a benign, peaceful disease. It does not lead to AIDS, and it is just an immune marker. It's just like when in iridology, when we see certain signs in the lymphatic system, we might tell a person they're predisposed to have a weakened immune system. So they're saying that AIDS, or that HIV virus is just something that many people have. They say that it has been in the United States for 200 years, and it probably will not hurt anybody. Quite a controversial statement coming from the top virologists in the world. They also say numerous things about how it can or cannot be sexually transmitted, but the bottom line in here is that they say that what AIDS really is a series of diseases that affect people that either have an incredible destructive lifestyle or that are taking a lot of pharmaceutical or street drugs. That AIDS is really not HIV, that AIDS is the side effect of a horrible lifestyle or being a drug addict on pharmaceutical or street drugs. And they say that if you look at what people are dying from of AIDS, it is generally not anything to do with HIV, it's the side effects of AZT. Wow. Top virologists and immunologists. Okay. This article never came into the United States. I finally saw it talked about in a magazine in this country called Spin Magazine, which is a rock and roll magazine printed in the United Kingdom. Okay. Yes?
Out
Out of the people who died of AIDS, are there, do you know the percentage or whatever, of the people who died of AIDS who died and but not been given the APT or something?
Yeah, and there's always tremendous risk factors with those people. In other words, intravenous drug use, or maybe even hemophiliacs that break the hermetic seal consistently, or people that are involved in getting needle pricks and breaking hermetic seal, or people that have lived incredible lifestyles. To date, I have not personally met anybody with AIDS who hasn't had some kind of history that sounded very dangerous. Okay. Yeah, and or blood transfusions. Sure, taking blood out of one person who's sick and putting into another person, you get what's in that blood. Certainly that's a way. So I just wanted to show you a few articles that have been printed in the London Times. Now we know that the London Times is a very radical, small-time alternative health paper, right? It's one of the biggest newspapers in the world. They're not fond of printing articles that they cannot document. Okay? So again, that just brings up the question, why don't we hear about this in this country? Just thought I'd mention that. Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very rare. You know, it has to be an alternative newspaper or something like that. To date, I haven't seen either of these articles reprinted. Has anybody seen them reprinted? Yeah.
There's an application called Kindred Spirit in England, and that had a whole issue on this subject.
Yeah.
But that's more like a New Age type.
And it's in England. But in this country, I don't see this. I don't even see the National Health Federation publishing, reprinting these articles. So I have really been, my eyes have been opened tremendously from traveling to Europe fairly steadily over the last 10 years, realizing when I come home, I go, wow, did you hear about that? David and I ran into this article in England in the late 80s. And we came home like, wow, could you believe that story? And everybody's like, what are you talking about? And we're like, I can't believe it. The UPI, the AP didn't pick this up? No. And then I'm over there in 92 when this comes out, and the same thing. And what they're saying in here is that millions and millions of dollars are being sending into AIDS research, and they're saying that it's probably the biggest medical blunder in this history. I don't hear that over here.
But if AIDS was just from the actions, bad actions and stuff, it would have gone rampant in the 60s.
Yeah. So, but think about it. Think about the 60s and then think about the 70s. Intravenous drug use actually did increase in the 70s. In the 60s, it was more pot. That was the general drug. It's really smoking and herb. In the 70s, it became manufactured drugs. Cocaine, poppers, ecstasy, a lot more coming from the manufactured industry versus hashish, marijuana, opium, which were the predominant drugs in the 60s. Yeah.
Plus, when did they take and do the immunization? It probably was after the 70s.
Oh, sure.
So there you have the spread of it. So
Sure.
there's no correlation.
And let's face it, it wasn't the smallpox vaccine that was the only cause of this. Medical researchers advertised for blood from intravenous drug-using homosexual community people. They were collecting blood from people who had hepatitis. They took that blood and made the hepatitis vaccine, which they re-injected into the healthy populations of New York, San Francisco, and many major cities of the United States. Okay? And all of a sudden we have AIDS breaking out tremendously in New York, San Francisco, among the gay community. Okay? So here we have another incidence of using a live virus. Now if you go to the hospital in Provo or Salt Lake or any of your towns today and get the hepatitis vaccine, same one. Okay? It's the only one on the market. So I'd think twice about doing that one. Okay, again, is it just this? No. I work with many people who've had AIDS. I have found that there's a lifestyle that tends to be a common denominator among especially homosexual men who have developed AIDS. And I'll tell you what that lifestyle is. Usually getting up around noon and staying up till 6 in the morning, going to a bathhouse and having sex with multiple partners, using intravenous drugs, feeling that they're going to die and go to hell because they're homosexual, smoking, drinking, a lifestyle that if we adapted in here for a year, it'd probably kill every one of us, okay? A lifestyle that would depress your immunity to its lowest possible level. I've had men tell me that they've had as many as 25 different sexual partners in the same night, swallowing up to a pint of semen, okay? The stories that I've heard are incredible, okay? What do you think's happening to your immune system? Staying up late and also hating yourself all the time because believing that what you're doing is very wrong. This is the typical lifestyle, okay? People say, well, there are healthy people who developed AIDS. I haven't seen that yet, unless it was through blood transfusion and things of that nature. So I saw a sign in Los Angeles, meet 50 AIDS survivors at a high school in LA. I went there, and there were 1,000 people there, including myself. And there wasn't one member from television, radio, or newspaper at this whole place. And nobody cares. People want devastation, destruction. You turn on the 6 o'clock news. Do you hear, oh, someone grew some great tomatoes today, and boy, did they taste good. So-and-so had the best birthday of his life. No. What do we hear? Car accidents, fires, negativity. You begin to think the world is that way, and it isn't. But you get 30 minutes of the most negative stuff that happened in the world today, all concentrated down into 30 minutes. If you want to improve your immunity, turn the TV off at 6 o'clock. Yeah, get rid of it. I almost hooked up cable. Anisha got mad at me. I said, no, we have to have cable because I have to see this educational TV. And then the day that was supposed to get hooked up, I called in a panic and said, no, don't hook it up. And we didn't hook up our cable. I can't even see myself when I'm on TV now. Really, I was on twice in LA and I never got to see the show. Yeah, I know what I'd talk about. I'd bore myself. So anyway, that's the kind of a lifestyle I see. So I went to this convention, and what did they say? I met about 50 people that had recovered from AIDS. They had a couple of common denominators. One was, they all used natural methods. Nobody there got well from AIDS using AZT or DDI or any chemotherapy drug. Everybody used natural methods only. I was trying to find someone who said, I did it with AZT or I did it. No. And so that reflects the medical community's answer that everybody who has AIDS will die, usually within 5 years. So they're right. If you follow their program, you die. What did they do it with? Oh, man, you name it. Garlic, aloe vera, colonics, wheatgrass, ginseng. I heard it all. I was looking for a common denominator, and I could only find one. And the one common denominator was they had to love and accept themselves. Wow, that was pretty amazing. That's what they all did. At some part in their program, they had to say, wait a minute. You know, I'm healing myself now. I forgive myself for any insanity in the past. I love myself. I want to live. And I accept myself, who I am right now. Yes, I want to change in the future, but right now I love myself. I think that's incredibly important with getting over any immunological disaster. I have one patient that had Kaposi sarcoma cancer. Oh, in this book here, I have a handout on AIDS. It's a medical handout. It's a bit dumb, but here it is, AIDS, Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. It's the latest from the medical system on AIDS. And it tells you a little bit of the associated diseases like Candida albicans overgrowth, Kaposi sarcoma cancer, and pneumocystis carini, lung fibrotic disease, and the common ones. So you can just upgrade yourself a little bit on what AIDS is. But generally, the medical profession says that AIDS is any time you have a T cell count less than 150 or 200. I've seen it reported a couple different ways. And one or two of the AIDS-associated diseases. And once you get to that point or degenerate to that point, then you're said to have AIDS. And once you have AIDS, the prognosis is that you will die, and probably die soon.
This is disease?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't that look like diseases? Yeah, picking on me. I had one man who was the sickest that I have known. He had Kaposi sarcoma covering his body. He had lung fibrotic disease. His T-cell count was low, very low. And he was dying in the hospital, walked out of the hospital. I worked with him. He not only got well and still is well, he doesn't even test HIV positive. Okay. Now the medical community says that that's absolutely impossible. And since then I've seen 2 articles written in major magazines about people that have gone from HIV positive to HIV negative. I don't think this is going to be the normal, okay, but when you decide to heal yourself and you go 110%, look out. Anything could happen, right? I've had numerous other people that I've worked with. To date, they're all still alive, okay, so that's a good sign. So the man, so far I know of 7 people that have gone from HIV positive to HIV negative. You can call the Center for Disease Control and ask them how many people have survived AIDS to date, and they will tell you 0. If you survive AIDS and go to your doctor, they will call it either a misdiagnosis or a spontaneous remission. Okay? Isn't that incredible? So that no one wants to count anybody that's surviving. I just thought I'd bring in a couple current cases here. One thing you have to be very careful of if you're working with people with AIDS is that they may have a contagious disease, who knows. I personally, being a fiery, bold, outgoing person that I am, I tend not to be too paranoid. I just take care of myself and hope that my body stays strong and protects me against coming in contact with all sorts of people. I mean, I have fingers on malignant cancer tumors. I had a man in England with throat cancer. As I was examining him throw up, a piece of it went in my mouth. You know, I mean, I get sticky, gooey, and covered with stuff. My best protection is not a mask, is to just stay healthy, take care of myself, work only 3 days a week, love myself, and do my own healing program. I have a great incentive to stay healthy, right? This lady here, young lady, 32 years old, lived with a crack addict. He died of AIDS. She was diagnosed with AIDS. And when I got a call from her a year and a half ago, the doctors had sent her home to die. She was on every pharmaceutical drug. Remember, I might have said earlier that expect about 20 pharmaceutical drugs for an AIDS patient to be on, because they have all types of secondary and third-dairy infections and all sorts of sicknesses. But she has malignant bowel cancer and full-blown AIDS and a T-cell count of 2. Pretty low. This was a year and a half ago. I have been working with her, and she's about the most negative person I've ever met in my life. Let me see if I can quickly pull a couple quotes. Oh, she has vaginal and yeast infection, green pus drips out her vagina. She usually says that she's slipping. She has some of the most negative mantras. I talked to her a year ago, and she said, "I'm afraid the cancer is running rampant in my body and will kill me." That's a nice affirmation. What do you think will happen to her if she continues that? The cancer will run rampant in her body and kill her. I said, "Please, Laura, come on." I send her positive affirmation all the time. I said, "Work on this. What's the positive affirmation?" And she said, "The cancer isn't going to kill me and it won't run rampant in my body." That's the best she could come up with. Now, I'm not picking on Jewish people, but all cultures have their own distortions. African, Jewish people, upstate New York Germans, you know, and one of hers is a classic whining victim, okay? And she even tells that to me. She goes, I said, what's killing you today? And she goes, being Jewish. Okay, we laugh about it. You know, all cultures, religions, everybody has certain positive aspects, certain negative aspects, all of that. So we laugh about that. She's still moaning, but a little bit less, whining, but a little bit less. The bottom line is I talked to her right before I left. She still has malignant bowel cancer. She still has a T-cell count of 2. She's still whining. She's got a few positive affirmations, and she's juicing every day. She's up and about. She's a lot better. The medical tests don't show that. But come on, how many people that are that sick live more than a month? They gave her 2 weeks when they let her out of the hospital. This is a year and a half ago. And I said, Laura, she goes, I'm still sick. And I said, yeah, you're also still alive. Okay, let's take a look at that. Sometimes, you know, she lives in Florida, so I'm working with her over the telephone. I've never even met her. I just got contacted through her sister in England who called me when I was in Spain, and I'm working with her in Florida. I mean, this sounds like one of David's cases. He's the greatest long-distance natural healer herbalist I've ever known. It's not easy. I even called him, and we talked a little about this because he's got techniques that I don't even have. Anyway, she's still alive. What can I say? I think this woman's going to be alive forever. I think you could run her over with a bulldozer, and she'd complain, but she wouldn't die. Okay? So I think she's going to get better. Okay, I really do. And I don't put a lot of attention on the medical test. She has good bowel movements. She's feeling stronger. Her boyfriend left her, and I said, why? And she said, well, he said I was a nag, and another word I won't mention. And so now she makes all her juice herself. Got the Champion set up in the kitchen, and she's doing just fine. They ran a benefit for her when she was released from the hospital because she was going to die to get money for expenses and funeral expenses, and she spent all that, and nobody wants to give her any money anymore because she's looking better than everybody else in her neighborhood. And she still has full-blown AIDS, a 2 T-cell count. And you know how much that how much weight I put on a T-cell count? Not much. Okay? Some people are born with low T-cell counts. I said to her, what was your T-cell count before you got sick? She doesn't know. She might have had a 2 T-cell count her whole life. Yeah, no T-cell count. Absolutely. Yeah. There was a case in Los Angeles where they were studying people who were born with abnormal absorption hydrocephalus or watery retention and all sorts of problems on the brain. They decided that they wanted to find adults that had that problem and do CAT scans of their brain. And they did this with numerous ones. I certainly wouldn't volunteer for a test like this. One of these women was a 40-year-old middle-aged school teacher. They did a CAT scan of her brain. Now, normally a CAT scan, if we're looking at a top view, shows a skull plate, and then this whole area is filled with your brain. Hers showed a skull plate, and her brain was this big, and it was hollow. Okay? This was not only on television, I saw it in the newspaper, and they were blown away. She's a school teacher, not a retarded person that can't speak in a mental institution. I never saw that story again. Why do you think that might be? Because that would blow every law of medical science right out the window. Okay? All I can say is, this is not normal, but the body is great. Why is this so funny? Yeah. That's right. Oh, what a sick thing to say, laughing at people who are sick. Anyway, what this shows is that our body is an incredible adapter. Okay? I don't know how this is possible. She's a freak, okay? But, you know, this is why if someone's injured and a piece of their brain is gone and they have this much brain but this piece is gone, and everybody says, oh, forget it, she's dead, whatever, we keep going. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't give up, because I know there's someone that is surviving with the same size piece of brain, and that's all they got, right? Does that make sense? So never, you know, this is why a lot of medicine, we just, you know, we don't use it. It's useless information. Okay. One last patient with AIDS. Her father's a medical doctor. He was almost a bit alternative. He was a hip medical doctor. But when his daughter of 37 developed AIDS after using intravenous drugs and having other exposure, he put her on the standard regime of AZT and other drugs. It's funny how people lose their consciousness when it comes to their own family sometime. Her immune system at that point immediately started deteriorating. She was on AZT, a moderate dose, for quite a long period of time, and she was starting to show other signs and symptoms of what we call AIDS, which I say is AZT poisoning. She said she'd do anything. We immediately stopped AZT, and within a month her T-cell count doubled, and all her symptoms went away. And she's fine now. Last time I talked to her, she called, left a message, says, I'm doing fine. I'm still not willing to quit my decaf coffee. I know the program you want me on. I've slipped a little bit. I'm not going to come in until I'm back on it because I know you're going to yell at me. And I'm going on vacation to Europe in a couple of weeks, so I'll see you in the summer when I get back. Doesn't seem to be too worried about anything. What? Yeah, yeah. And so she was being killed by AZT, okay? I think she's going to be fine. I don't think there's any problem. And she was diagnosed as having, she's not only HIV positive, but she has had AIDS. So anyway, just wanted to share a few of those stories with you and my experience, because that's really all I can share with you is my experience with AIDS. What do I think? I tend to agree with the latest virologists and immunologists. I think that HIV, I heard one, David and I heard this man speak on HIV, and he said the only way we're going to keep the entire population from getting HIV is if you lock yourself in your house, staple gun 20 mil plastic over your house, and not come out for the next 20 years. You know, who knows if that's true or that's not true? Who knows if HIV is benign or peaceful or a killer? Who knows if this is the side effect of AZT or if it isn't? Who knows if AIDS is a disease of homosexuality or it isn't? So what are we going to do about all of this? Yeah, keep our immune system strong. Stay healthy is your best protection and your patient's best protection. And then if someone already has it, we do the same thing. Get healthy, increase your immunity, take care of yourself, and hopefully nature will do its job. Today, everything seems to be okay. I'm waiting for one of my AIDS patients to come to me with some bad news, but it hasn't happened yet. And people are dying all over of AIDS. I think the statistics are all in argument with each other about AIDS and how many people are dying. I've seen everything from 20,000 a year to 250,000 a year, so I don't know, okay? But even if it is, let's say, 100,000 a year, which it may not be anywhere near that many, that really means that in the next 10 years, the amount of people that will die from AIDS are the people that will die this year from heart disease alone. So why are we hearing about AIDS every 2 minutes on TV and nothing about heart disease? Thank you very much. She's going like this. Money. This is a big thing.
$280 billion is going to be spent on drug research. $280
Woo!
billion.
Woo! I could just like a little chunk of that to do some herbal research. I'd be happy with $1 million. Yes, money. AZT costs about $10,000 a year to go on AZT. The newest heart drug that they zap you with, the clot breaker, $5,000 a shot. I talked to a guy that got 3 shots in 5 minutes. 15,000, boom, boom, boom. Wow, I'm going to raise my prices for Hawthorne Berry Tonic. Incredible, isn't it? There's some money here. In fact, the government now is investigating companies that are developing AIDS drugs, saying that they shouldn't be as expensive as they are. Well, of course they shouldn't. What do you think an aspirin costs? What do you think these drugs cost? Very, very little.
How much you get them in the hospital?
What's that?
If you take an aspirin in the hospital, it's $50.
Well, yeah, of course. Somebody's middlemaning that, I guess. Any questions on
You
this?
started to say there are a few things you have to be careful of. You said they may have a contagious disease.
Mm-hmm. Don't kiss them.
That's it?
Well, I don't know. You know, I do my own things in my office. Basically what they are is I wash my hands before and after I work on each person, if I touch them especially. I burn a lot of sage. If someone is really sickly, I'm careful about how much I interact with them. And I smell that and breathe that all the time. But I just feel like I keep my windows open. I keep my essential oils going. Anisha feeds me my 6 cloves of garlic a day. Do you know what I'm saying? Those are my preventatives. I know that essential oils kill virus, bacteria, fungus. I know that the garlic does. I go to the gym. I get up at 6 in the morning and go to the gym for my 3-hour workout. That doesn't come naturally because remember, Curly of the Three Stooges didn't like to exercise, and that's my genetic thing. So I go like this to getting to the gym, and I make it there, and I just keep healthy. I think that's the best thing. And we don't have to worry that much because we're not using intravenous blood transfusions or drugs. And of course, this is the big fear with AIDS, is needle pricks and things like that. And you can see that now because every time the police or the paramedics come, some of them look like spacemen when you're injured. Everybody's got rubber gloves. And according to a lot of doctors, like Dr. Strecker's report, that won't do any good at all. In fact,
My daughter was just taught to double glove.
double glove, yeah. And nowadays some surgeons have been developing these things that look like NASA spacesuits where they breathe oxygen in the tank to do surgery in. It's impossible. You just have to keep healthy. That's your best defense. Best defense is a good offense, right?
Is it just through the blood and not pass anything?
Nobody knows. Some people say mosquitoes can pass it. Some people say, because imagine a mosquito bites someone and takes their blood and then comes and bites you. Okay, you're getting that blood into your system. Some people say it can be transmitted through air. Some people say if you have sex, use a condom. Dr. Strecker says that's like dropping marbles through a fish net, that there's no way that that would stop. He says every retrovirus in history has been able to be passed on via saliva, air, and everything else. So it's an incredible controversy. I guess really my statement is nobody knows what they're talking about yet with this. And there's always been plagues, and probably this plague will end itself before anybody comes up with a cure. Here's the classic thing of disease in medicine, which is really great. We all need to be into AIDS research right now and come up with a new drug every week, because all diseases through history have some type of curve and then they drop off. Because what happens? What does our body do? Builds up an immunity. Our body eventually builds up an immunity. But along this path, a lot of people are dying. And then a lot of people are coming up with medicine. And if you have to happen to mix that donkey manure with battery acid right here, give it to one person as the disease is in recession, this is called the billionaire point. Okay? This is where you are rich. You are very rich. So if AIDS is getting really, really bad and thousands of people are dying, we all might go into some herbal tonic for AIDS, and hopefully we hit the button at the right time. It's kind of like a Vegas jackpot. Anti-plague remedy. Sure. Any other questions on AIDS before we just go into general? Yeah.
Was there any different thing you do, or just the basic cleansing?
Exactly what I do for cancer. There is a couple different things I do that I'm experimenting with. I'll share with you my latest experiments. High doses of immune-boosting herbs. what would be maybe our number one that we've talked about as far as boosting? Echinacea, of course. So I put these people on massive amounts of echinacea. I mentioned earlier on that a Dr. Badgley found T-cell counts increased dramatically using echinacea, taking blood tests with his AIDS patients out of San Francisco. I met him a few times. And he has a book out called Healing AIDS Naturally. Yeah, it's a wonderful book. He uses herbs, all sorts of alternative methods, even homeopathics, but there's some interesting research in there. I like Siberian ginseng as an immune stimulator. I like pau de arco. Lots of garlic. Loads of garlic. And I've also lately been introducing St. John's wort. Why? Because, well, a couple reasons. I have read articles saying that St. John's wort in many studies has been proven to be incredibly antiviral. Yeah. Oh, sure. And mushrooms, all types of... Christopher really didn't go into mushrooms and fungi, but almost all fungus is immune stimulating. Yeah, sure, usnea, and we have shiitake mushrooms, reishi mushrooms, but just, you know, one of the best is that wood fungus that grows on the base of trees. That's stronger than all of them, but nobody sells that.
That's what I had on my slippery elm yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. There's
I got a call from a lady in Santa Barbara that knows this woman who's an RN that somehow came down with the AIDS virus, and she travels up to Ukiah and gets a particular parasite or fungal that grows off of the trees up there, and that's the only place you can get it, and I don't remember the name. But I'll have to...
usnea.
No, it's a different name.
Really? Because that sounds like usnea.
But it could maybe...
It's a lichen?
It is, yeah, but she had a different name for it, and she lives down in, I think, San Jose, and she's doing great results with it.
She might be using the Latin name, which I'm not, it isn't in the computer right now.
I'll check it.
Okay, yeah, that could be it. We passed around an herb, I forgot. Did we all eat some? What did it taste like? Oh, no.
Here, I've got nothing past that.
Come on. Sweet, okay. We had some sweetness in it. Sweet at first.
That's like a taste like things that they use in the physician's office smells.
Ah, interesting. Potato chip. Wow. Yeah, that was the wrong bag.
Oh, is that really?
That was, does anybody have it? Dong Quai? Dong Quai.
That tasted good.
Yeah. Kind of sweet tasting, kind of smoky tasting. Very distinct. See, now, when you go home, if you call David and order 25, 50 herbs or whatever that you're not familiar with, and you set them around, as you use them, keep tasting them, and eventually you'll be able to identify every one of these. This doesn't taste like anything else we've put in our mouth here. Anisha, can I call you into action again here? Let's try this one. Let me talk a little bit about question. Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody gets anti-plague formula. That's one of the standards. And then I make up a formula, and here you'll see called MU capital AID, kind of my secret code that's not so secret, MU-AID tonic, and that's the formula that I use with my patients along with the anti-plague super tonic, lots of garlic, and exercise and a good food program and all of those things. Towards the back, we have patient, first visit patient information. If everybody would just turn to that section while they're eating their herb or whatever. What was that we just did? Ah, okay. Put this in your mouth. It's a root. Mix it with some saliva. Bite into it. Look at it too, if it's not too late. Smell it. See if it has any color. See if there's any color inside the root, because sometimes the color inside a root is different than the color outside of a root. And then everybody turn to my first visit information sheet. Yes?
Have you heard any research on the Venus flytrap?
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of research being done right now on Venus flytrap, which is carnivorous, for its work with AIDS and cancer. Yeah. Everything has to go through everybody's own filter and vibes and feelings. And I've read the research, it sounded good, and then I thought, this sounds weird to me. You know, it just felt kind of strange. Because it's a carnivorous plant, it eats flies and bugs and things like that. Makes it a little different. And then I thought, nah, that's okay, and I ordered some and I set it on my shelf. But to date, I'm doing this with it. It's just something inside me right now. Now, this doesn't mean it's right or wrong. I'm just talking about my person. You know how we're all different, some AK, some iridology, some psychic. I'm just hesitating with it a little bit. And I haven't been able really to move into it yet. Well, it isn't. It's actually you're using the whole herb, but this is a strange plant. And I'm just, you know, hesitating with it. Now, certainly there are other things that people are claiming massive benefits from that are strange, like shark cartilage and all these things, although I do know people that swear that their cancer was cured by shark cartilage. I think that you can cure yourself of disease with a lot of things. Certainly, pharmaceutical drugs cure disease. There's no real doubt about that. Shark cartilage, I'm sure, has cured some people of cancer. And placenta and all these other things. Okay? But what's going to happen next? Okay? What's going to happen after you cure yourself and you've used these things physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Okay, think about that one when we're thinking about all these substances. Does that make sense? In other words, there might be a payment coming up that you weren't counting on. Where so far to date, I haven't seen anybody have a payment for avocados. Okay, David tomorrow is going to go into jurisprudence, the legalities of practicing. He knows a lot more about it than I do and about what's going on. He's experienced his dad being incarcerated multiple times. He is a member of herbalist organizations. He talks to everybody. He's the master of the subject. I am not. I'm an illegal clinic operator, and if you've listened to what I say, who knows, I could get you in trouble. But I'm just going to tell you what I do so you have an idea. This is my release on the front. You're welcome to read that at any time. I also vibe people out. There's a new age word. If I feel that a person is going to cause me trouble, I won't work on them. I had a lady come into my office with cancer. She was going to another alternative healer. She came to see me. She said, I just don't like him anymore. And she goes, and if I find out in a few months my cancer is worse, I'm going to sue the blank out of him. Okay? Do I want to work with her now? Whoa! Thank you very much. You know, I really don't know how to help you, but I have a friend that does. His name's Rocannon. I'll just kind of shuffle them somewhere else, okay? And sometimes people do that to me, too. I just won't work on someone like that because I hear trouble. Listen. Keep your ears open. And if you hear people having, what's going to happen then if I work with her and she doesn't get better? I'm named in the lawsuit. She doesn't want to take responsibility for her health, does she? She wants to lay it on me. I just turned her right away. If David will talk more about this too, but most of the time when his father had trouble or other people I know had, there were two people. General rule, work on one person at a time. When people surprise me by bringing in someone they say is their wife or husband or mother or father, look out, okay? Because one time when Dr. Christopher was arrested, it was a man and woman posing as husband and wife that were actually officials from government. So usually a witness is needed, but not always. So just, you know, be careful. David's going to talk about this. I like to know how they heard about me. And if they heard about me through a yoga center and the yoga center goes, oh yeah, they've been doing yoga for 6 months, I don't find many federal agents that will do yoga for 6 months to get to see a natural healer, although it could be possible. And I don't do a lot of squawking in my own hometown. I come up here to shoot my mouth off of. I do a lot in Europe, but around Los Angeles I keep pretty quiet. Do a few classes in my house, talk at a few yoga studios, lay low. I don't wear a white shirt. I don't wear a doctor's suit. I keep my stethoscope hidden in a drawer. That's right, I'm not listed in a phone book. I don't call myself a doctor in town. Do you know what I'm saying? Occasionally, I got on a TV show and it said Dr. Richard Schulze because they read some of my biography, and then they asked me about my patients, and I said, hey, I'm a teacher. I just, you know, instruct. So I just do that. Anyway, let's look at some of the things I ask my patients, and how might this help you in talking to a person? Just by asking them. Name. Hey, I can learn something by their name. It'll usually tell me their ethnic inheritance, or at least the ethnic inheritance of their husband. If they're married, I might ask their maiden name. And whether it's, you know, I can tell from one country or another what their inheritance may be. Certain diseases have certain, certain cultural, religious, social groups have different disease rates. If her name is Mrs. Feldman, I know that she has a 3 times higher rate of cancer than non-Jewish women. Okay? Jewish women have 3 times the breast cancer rate of other types of people. Okay? Every social, even economic group have different diseases. Absolutely. Their eating habits, their emotional habits. You know, look at, there's different types of people. You can line one culture up and say, okay, we're going to kill you all, and they'll kind of walk in. And you can line another culture up and they'll kill you. Okay? Do you know what I'm saying? All cultures have different ways of putting up with things, of torturing themselves, of torturing other people. And we see that around the world. Some people are more victims, some people are more masochists, some more sadists. What can I say? You know, and you see different things. You see that the Irish Catholics are different than the Irish Protestants. Okay? The way they eat, the way they think, their nervous systems. Do you know what I mean? You see the differences in the world. I mean, why is it that up in the Punjab of India, they've been killing the Pakistanis back and forth since the beginning of time? The Muslims and the Hindus are killing each other in Sri Lanka. It's incredibly bloody. The Muslims and the Croats and all of them over in Yugoslavia are killing each other. I mean, people are different. And they have different diseases, different ailments, different emotional, negative and positive reactions. So that helps a lot. Again, I'm not being a bigot. I'm just acknowledging people's differences. Address, where do they live? Do they live in a polluted city? Do they live in a rural area? You can tell a lot by just asking these questions. I only let people fill out this front side. Everything inside, I want to ask them the question, watch them as they're answering it, listen to the tone of their voice. You can learn a lot. I find that people, if you say, what's your name? And they go, my name is Richard Schulze. Where do you live? 1621 California Avenue. What do you do? I'm an herbalist. How old are you? 23. Okay? You can watch. People have a pattern when they're answering questions correctly, and if all of a sudden they start to stretch it a little bit with you, they'll usually look in the opposite direction or change their voice tone. So I like to interview people, and they're not being bad to me. Some people just don't want to tell their age. I had one woman say, none of your business. Work address, what's their occupation? What do they do? Work in a paint factory, on the assembly line in Detroit? Are they a natural healer? A lot of hazards can be occupational. A lot of people with breathing disorders work in closed environments. In the 17th floor of an office building with air conditioning on all day. Whatever. Marital status, number of children. Sometimes I look in people's irises and I see 5 contraction furrows and they have 5 children. Only joking. I mean, come on, but that helps too. Stress level. You know that children add to the stress if it's a nervous disorder or whatever. I will also ask women if their age is around 40, late 40s, average age of menopause being 47 and a half. If they're in that age, I'll tell them if they have, ask them if they've had menopause yet. I'll ask them if they're experiencing any signs and symptoms. They might not even be aware that they are until I mention that. If they're younger, I'll ask them about the frequency of their period, any abnormalities. If they have had no children, I will ask them if they've had any pregnancies. And if they have, when were they terminated, or did they have miscarriages, and on and on and on. I need to know these things. They help me with figuring out what's going on. I had a woman come to me, 41 years old, that had 12 abortions, and she wanted to have children.
Oh my God.
And she's 45 years old now and has 2 kids, and is a neighbor of mine. And every doctor said, hysterectomy, forget it. And she had had 3 miscarriages. And now she's got 2 kids, and I'm not so sure she thinks she made the right decision. But, and on top of it, she's a single parent. So, wow. Next side, hobbies and leisure activities. I want to know if they, their hobby, suppose they tell me their hobby is operating a computer, or their hobby is dancing. What's the big difference there? Exercise. I want to know if they exercise, move around, what's going on. Typical meals, I say to people, now this is very important. I say to people, what do you typically eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And they'll say to me, well, I'm not that good of eater. And I'll go, well, what do you eat for breakfast? Well, I don't eat as good as I should. And I don't make any faces. During the whole interview, I don't tell them about vegetarianism or anything. I just say, well, tell me what you like to eat. What's your most common breakfast? I want to find out the way they eat. I like to loosen them up a little bit, get them to relax. Because if I say, well, are you a vegetarian? You see them whinge into the chair and go, well, most of the time. Do you know what I'm saying? So don't intimidate people when you ask them questions. Be very open and loving and smile. And if they say, well, you know, I shouldn't, but I really like ham sandwiches with pickles on top. Oh, okay. Ham sandwiches with pickle. Is that a lot of ham or a little ham? You know, I'll ask specific questions. I don't go, do you know what I'm saying? You can shut people right down with one bad look or one incorrect question. Nutritional supplements. Do you take any vitamins, minerals, or herbs? Oh, yeah. Or no, I don't take any, and I ask them. They might take Chinese formulas. I ask them if they have them. I don't tell them that homeopathic, homeopathic remedies contain goat pus. I just listen to it. Listen to it. No comments. I'm saving this for later, and then I'm going to tear them to shreds with it. Come on. Okay. Our herb. We ate an herb. Taste. What did it taste like? Bitter. Bitter? Yeah, really bitter. Did it have any color? Yeah. Yellow? Yellow, Oregon grape. Why would you say that? Because it's yellow, bitter and yellow, bitter and yellow. So we figure if we had to pick 3 herbs that this might be, what would they be? Okay, 4 herbs. Yellow dock. Oregon grape. Barberry. Golden seal. Okay, it's yellow. We figure it's got berberine, hydroxyzine. So we've narrowed it down to 4 out of 3 million species of plants. This is pretty good. That was golden seal. Okay. Hey, didn't taste bad at all. So a tincture of golden seal should be even more bitter and more yellow, like the one I passed around and we had the other day. So yellow is that was a very good guess. Oregon grape. What? Very good. Well, there are big parts of the root, but this is kind of the bottom of the jar. I apologize for that. You can see some chunks in here, though. But it is like valerian in the way that it has all these massive underground little smaller roots.
Are they just as strong?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll curl your toes. But there's a bigger piece of the root there.
Before I came, I had what's happening. But
Yeah.
I had to stick my hands in bleach water because
Yeah.
I was out the door to see a patient. And all my fingers, and I washed them.
Yeah.
Washed it because it wouldn't.
It's an incredible dye. Is our mouth ready for another one? What's that? Oh, you can keep it. Save it for later. Real nice one. I had someone, a patient of mine, go to the local drugstore and say, well, yeah, I talked with the pharmacist, I had a sore throat, and he told me to gargle with Golden Seal and sold me Golden Seal. Wow. A pharmacist. I went in the pharmacy, and they had a Nature's Way rack in the pharmacy. Now, I know that this isn't Doom Pharmacy on Point Doom out in Malibu. Wow. Okay, now I know this isn't totally unheard of, and it's not a chain pharmacy. It's a family-owned pharmacy, which is a big difference. And he also sold powdered herbs, Nature's Way powdered herbs, and Dr. Christopher's formulas. Wow.
There's several pharmacies in the valley that have a whole homeopathic section.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't have herbs.
Yeah, that's more common. Okay, let's continue on. How often do you have a bowel movement? A major question. And most people's answers will be, I'm regular. What do? Write down, I'm regular? I don't know what that means. So you say, oh, great. How often do you have a bowel movement? And they go, well, you know, I'm regular. And I'll go, okay, but how often? How often do you have a bowel movement? And sometimes they just never say, and I have to say, well, do you have like one bowel movement a week? And they'll go, oh, no, no, no. I go every day. And I'll go, oh, once a day? And they'll go, yeah, in the morning. Do you see what I mean? This is a 5-minute question. I don't ask anybody, how often do you have a bowel movement? They go, once at 7 a.m., once at 10 a.m., and sometimes once in the afternoon. Nobody ever says that. And I have people that say, okay, 2. Okay? And 2 what? 2 a day, 2 an hour, 2 a week. And I've been shocked because one lady said to me, I have 1. And I thought, oh, she meant 1 a day. And I was almost writing 1 a day. And I go, 1 a day? And she goes, no, 1 a month with my menstrual cycle. So you can be way off here, right? Do you use any tobacco, coffee, colas, caffeine drinks, alcohol, sugars, salt? You know, make a list of all the things you want to know. Ask them. I want to know if they use any aspirin or non-prescription drugs. If I wouldn't have asked this to this girl who was on beta blockers, I wouldn't have known why she had heart arrhythmias in the first place. I also want to know about current prescription drugs and previously prescribed prescription drugs. Any major usage? That was a tongue twister. Everybody say that. Previously prescribed prescription drugs. 3 times fast. Their whole life. Yeah. If they were on any major course, like, well, I did antibiotics for 2 years because of acne, or whatever it might be. Everybody get some of that herb? How does it taste? Taste bitter, sweet, bitter. How about resinous? Is it resinous? Sticky? Okay. Yeah. It's bitter, and it is a little bit sticky. And what did it look like? Was it green? Leaves? Creosote. Yeah, chaparral. Used to be called creosote bush. Really? Yeah, creosote bush. This is chaparral. This is from the sand dunes in the center of the lowest point in the United States, Death Valley. Anish and I picked this about a month ago. Really nice chaparral. Very strong, very bitter taste. Is this a nutritional herb? Medicinal herb. Yeah. When something tastes like this. Now, some people, I remember I had a client that drank 3 or 4 cups a day for 60 years or something. Well, if it tastes good to you, then it's a nutritional herb. That's all I can say. Your body's saying it's nutritional. For me, it's about in the middle somewhere. I find it to be quite strong tasting, but I do like the taste.
That's what my father had for years.
Yeah. And what happened?
He got better.
Yes. Thank you for sharing this. If you look up in the Merck Index, not the manual, one of the properties in chaparral, it says it's the strongest antioxidant ever found. Okay, this is chemistry Wow. So if someone's eating a lot of French fries and fried food and all those free radicals, they need to knock it back with a cup of chaparral tea. Yeah, I think so. Because it's been discovered to be the most powerful natural antioxidant, which means that what? It's a free radical scavenger, and it will prevent cancer and heal cancer. And of course, what does everybody say about it for the last 200 years after Indian usage and all the old herbals? It destroys tumors. Destroys and shrinks cancer tumors. Street drugs. You'd be surprised at the little old gray-haired ladies that'll shock me with a history of street drugs. Now, maybe that's not a question that you might ask in your neighborhood, but it certainly is in mine. I should have about 20 lines for this space when I ask people about their drug usage history. Medical treatment history, I want to know when they've been to a doctor for anything major, any major illnesses and accidents, surgeries, rare to find someone without a surgery. Describe your present physical condition. Sometimes people will talk about themselves very badly, but when you ask them to describe their condition, they say, I think I'm in great physical shape. And other times they'll sound great, and they'll say, oh, I'm just overweight. I get that a lot. Oh, I got to get rid of this fat. And I'm like, are they talking about themselves? You know, I see people that are wasting away. So I want to know their self-image here, really, physically and emotionally. And that is a shocker question sometimes. I got down to the end, and I thought I had talked to this one woman, and I thought that she had described herself in a way that she sounded like she was very healthy. And I said, can you describe your emotional condition? And she says, well, it's quite poor. And I go, why? And she says, because every night I dream that I'm dismembered and murdered. Now, this is an extreme case, but like, wow. And so, you know, you can get shocking answers here about people's own description of their health. Also, just to add to this, I would say that 95% of the people that come to me know exactly what's wrong with them. Absolutely what's wrong with them. And I ask them, I go, well, what's wrong with you? And they go, I don't know. And I go, make something up. And they go, well, I don't know. And I go, make something up. What do you think is wrong with you? And you know what they do? They tell me exactly what's wrong with them. I think that is my greatest diagnostic question. And I don't accept I don't know. Even if that goes on for 20 minutes, I don't know. Well, make something up. Well, I can't make something. Make something up. You tell me what's wrong with you. Guess. Pull something out of the air. This will go on, and eventually they'll go, well, I really think that this isn't my liver. I just think that I have an ulcer over here. They have an ulcer over there. It's always the case. People just don't take long enough to talk with people and listen to their little voice. Most people don't even know how to listen to their little voice, so I have to lasso it somewhere inside them and drag it out of them. But I want to hear this, and it's very powerful. Probably the second most powerful thing is taking a detailed family history. You'll see on the next page. I want to know how old Dad is. When did Dad die? If he's dead, what did he die of? How about his dad and mom? And what about Mom and her dad and mom? And you'll usually hear something like, Dad died of a heart attack quite young. His dad had a heart attack. His mother had a stroke. My mom has a circulation problem. Her father died of a heart attack, and her mother had phlebitis. What did I hear all the way through there? Circulatory problems. Or it'll be cancer. Or cancer on one side of the family and heart disease on the other. And this will tell you the patient's risk factors without being able to read their iris. I do all of this, and then I look into their eye. And wow, do I get a clear picture of what's going on with this person by all these questions. And as I'm asking these questions, I'm making notations on the back sheet here of what I'm going to talk about when this is over, what I'm going to suggest. I just keep flipping back and making notations of what we're going to do, what I see in the iris, what I see in the family history, and then I know what we're going to talk about. And it says back here, topics to discuss with patient, elimination, food, bad habits, exercise, emotional, and other. And then the most important question of all, why are you sitting here in my office paying me $100? Because I'm a good-looking guy? I mean, really, why are they here? What are they doing in your office? That's an enlightening one sometimes, because after you find an incredible history of cancer in the family, they've had 14 major surgeries, they go, well, I have tennis elbow. Okay? This happens to me all the time. Many people come in my office, and I think they want a Rolls Royce, and they only want to tune up the Volkswagen. So it's important to understand what a person wants before you put them on the 3-day cleanse and mucosaless diet, and you find out that they have an ingrown toenail, and that's all they want. Does that make sense? So it's important to find out what they want.
Do you ever pursue it a little bit further? Do you ever say, look at this history?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a salesman. Sure. Sure, absolutely. But it's important, that'll tell you a lot of things about this person when you find out the answer to that question. But then I will say to them, well, you know, Mom died of cancer, her grandmother died of cancer, you have a sluggish lymphatic system, you smoke cigarettes, your risk of cancer is about 10 times that of the average person. And I will tell them that. And I will say, now, I'm not trying to scare you, but it doesn't take a genius. If you were to call an insurance company and ask them statistically where you were headed, they'd tell you what you were going to die of. Insurance companies are very cold. They don't say that over the phone, but they have statisticians. They're designed to figure out, they could take everybody in this room, ask us 100 questions, and probably figure out the year we were going to die and what we were going to die of just from statistics. Now, they're not always right, but they're pretty darn close, and that's all we're doing here. If Mom had breast cancer, Grandma had breast cancer, and they are living the same lifestyle as Mom and Grandmother, emotionally, physically, whatever, what are they headed for? I also like to ask them, did anything bizarre or different happen during or just before the onset of your problem? And by asking it to that one woman who developed heart palpitations, it was a sinus infection, which led me to discover she was taking beta cell stimulators. I had a woman come to me not that long ago. She had pain in her side. She had gone to another alternative practitioner. Her pain was right here. He said that it was her liver and prescribed a liver cleansing routine that she was on for a week. It didn't help, and she was in even more severe pain. She came to see me, and before I examined her, just while I was talking to her, I said, did you do anything that you can think of right before you woke up the next morning with this pain, like the night before? And she said, yes. She says, I went dancing with all my friends, we went crazy, and we fell down into something, and I hit myself right here. And I rubbed my hand across her, and she had a broken rib. Okay? Now, you don't have to be a doctor to feel a broken rib. You go like this and bump, there's a big bump there. Do you know what I'm saying? So you have to ask a few more questions. Take the time. Like I said, I see 6 people a day, and I schedule 2 hours usually between patients. If it's a first visit, it's an hour and a half. If it's an additional visit, it's at least an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. Nothing. Really broken ribs. You go to a hospital and all they do is tape you up. So I just told her, don't breathe and talk for the next couple weeks. Sure, I use the dynamic duo, which is Professor Cayenne's heating balm and the BF&C formula, mixed 50-50. That's a David Christopher invention, and I use that on all types of traumas like that. But you see how it is? I mean, someone else, she said pain here. Sure, it's right where the liver is. Put her on a liver cleanse. But you might have to actually, you know, rub. But the importance here really is not the touching. It's asking what went on during the onset. Does that make sense? In other words, I think I mentioned this before. If you're driving down the road, you get a tank of gas. 3 blocks later, your engine sputters. You don't think it was the tune-up you got last year. Look towards the last thing you did. I just put gas in my car. Maybe there's something with the gas. Does that make sense? We hanging in there? And then I always make notations of what I put them on and kind of get an idea of what I want to do with them over the next 5 or 10 visits, a progression. And then I talk to them about that. Then the next phase of this is I tell them what I think. I suggest programs. We come to some type of agreement They might want to do 20 visits and purify down to a cellular level. They may want to stop the inflammation in their elbow. And we come to some type of agreement. I decide whether I want to work with them. They decide whether we want to work with me, and we go forward from there. David, how are we with our break time? Okay, let's take a break. We'll come back and go over some particular case histories.